6 o'clock Central African time. A very good morning to you. As we say, wake up with us, Africa. We arise and shine here on Channel Africa. We're broadcasting live from our Johannesburg studios, that's in South Africa. I'm your host, Asanda, Beda. My co-pilot, not with me today, Peter Ndoro, feeling under the weather. So I'll be riding this solo, and we're together for the next 3 hours. Thank you for choosing Channel Africa to be your source of information, news, and current affairs, as well as lifestyle shows coming up later from the African perspective. Find us on the SABC Plus app, that's via mobile phones. You can find us also on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as the live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 is our handle there. That same handle is where you can find us on our various social media platforms. In this first hour of Rise and Shine, we take a look at Nigeria's President, Bola Tinubu. He's declared that the worst is over after months of economic reforms that have driven up living costs and deepened poverty. There's also been strong reaction after a military court in the Democratic Republic of Congo sentenced former President Joseph Kabila to death in absentia. Those stories and more coming up, of course. Let's start with our news update. Here's Jolani Tulo Mwepe. With that, following her is Fikile Lingwati with our sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Demand for the resignation of Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina is escalating. This as hundreds of protesters across the country continued to demonstrate yesterday in demonstrations that have shaken the government. The demonstration started in Antananarivo last week over nationwide water shortages and blackouts, but have since spread across the island, prompting Rajoelina to dissolve the government late on Monday. A message on the protest movement's Facebook page called for Rajoelina's resignation, as well as the dissolution of the Election Commission. Allies of the former president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, have rejected the death sentence handed to him by a military tribunal, calling it illegally and politically motivated. He was sentenced to death in absentia for crimes against humanity, treason and backing the M23 rebels in eastern Congo. The BBC's Paul Njie has the story.
The Common Front for Congo, which includes parties allied to Joseph Kabila, said there was growing dictatorship and instrumentalization of the justice system for political gains. In a statement, the opposition group added that the conviction process was illegal and unacceptable. Nehemi Mwilanya, a former chief of staff of Kabila's administration, also described the verdict as a political decision aimed at excluding the ex-president from the political scene. A lawyer representing the plaintiffs celebrated the court ruling and accused the former leader of supporting the rebel movements in the country.
The family of South Africa's late Nathi Mthethwa say they haven't received any formal communication from the African National Congress Party as well as national government regarding his passing. The 58-year-old ambassador to France died in Paris on Tuesday after he reportedly fell from the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Regency Hotel. The family has gathered at Mthethwa's homestead at Kwambonambi on the KwaZulu-Natal North Coast. Family spokesperson is Musawokupila Mthethwa.
The family is saddened and we're still in disbelief that this actually happened. There are two things that I would like to touch on. The first one being that while we're still in communication with the brother of Nathi's wife, and she was letting us know that our son had passed, on our way home to inform the family, the news had already been publicized and the public knew more details than the family.
The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry taking place in Pretoria, South Africa, has adjourned until the 13th of October. In a statement, the Commission has attributed the adjournment to Criminal Intelligence Boss General Dumisani Khumalo's ill health and the unavailability of Commissioner Sesi Baloyi next week. General Khumalo, who has been considered a key witness in the Madlanga Commission, fell sick yesterday after arriving at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College where the Commission is sitting. National Police Commissioner General Fanima Simola has confirmed that Khumalo is receiving the best medical care and is in good spirits. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has told a security summit in Copenhagen that Russia would not succeed in sowing division and anxiety in the bloc. She said Moscow's pattern of intimidation would not be allowed to triumph. The Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said she hoped it was now clear there was a hybrid war underway and that Europe needed to respond strongly.
I hope that everybody recognizes now that there is a hybrid war, and one day it's Poland, the other day it's Denmark, and next week it will probably somewhere else that we see sabotage or we see drones flying. There is only one country that are willing to threat us, and it is Russia, and therefore we need a very strong answer back.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, PSG stunned Barcelona in Champions League clash. And the president of the International Paralympic Committee says he's expecting reaction for lifting a ban on Russian and Belarusian athletes. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Right, after the 6 o'clock news on Rise and Shine, we take a look at a feature that we call the Africa Roundup. This is where we bring you news in and around our continent that you may have missed, compiled by our team of reporters, of researchers and editors to make sure that you get into the know. It's also a way that we can throw forward into what could develop in the news space in this new day. It is Thursday, the 2nd of October. This is Rise and Shine. And today we start our Africa Roundup with Nigeria, where the president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, has declared that the worst is over after months of economic reforms that have driven up living costs and deepened poverty. In a national address marking the country's 65th Independence Day, he defended scrapping fuel subsidies and unifying the exchange rate, policies that sparked inflation and public anger, but which he insists are needed to reset the economy.
The seeds of those difficult but necessary decisions are bearing fruits. In resetting our country for sustainable growth, we ended the corrupt fuel subsidy and multiple foreign exchange rates that created massive incentive for a rentier economy, benefiting only a tiny minority. We are racing against time. We must build the road we need, repair the ones that have become descriptive, and construct the schools our children will attend, and the hospitals that will care for our people. We have to plan for the generations that will come after us.
There's been strong reaction after a military court in the Democratic Republic of Congo sentenced former President Joseph Kabila to death in absentia. He was convicted of war crimes, treason and crimes against humanity, a ruling that has sent shockwaves through Congolese politics. Joshua Lim has more.
Kabila, who led Congo from 2001 to 2019, has denied wrongdoing and says the judiciary has been politicized. He was not present for the trial and was also unrepresented by legal counsel. Lawyer Richard Bondo hailed the result as a victory for the country.
We are satisfied because justice has been served. Given that the defendant, Kabila, mastermind of all rebel movements, all insurgents, and all Rwandan aggression, he, as the mastermind, has just been sentenced to capital punishment.
Some residents of Congo's rebel-occupied eastern city of Bukavu did not share that sentiment. This resident pointed out that the trial had cost the public millions and questioned whether Kabila's conviction would truly bring an end to the conflict in eastern parts of the country. The verdict could fuel further divisions in the vast mineral-rich Central African nation, which has endured decades of conflict.
Hundreds of people in Madagascar marched for a fifth straight day on Wednesday, demanding President André Rajolina's resignation. The unrest is the largest in years and poses the toughest test to his rule since his 2023 re-election. Siaker Jasny reports.
In Madagascar's capital, Steve Razafindrainibe prepares to leave home on Tuesday morning, knowing he will soon stand among thousands. The PhD student was among many who took to the streets that day to protest against the government.
I'm fed up, and so are all the Malagasy people, with power cuts, water cuts, and above all, the confiscation of rights and power in the hands of a certain population. I think that as citizens, we have a duty to demonstrate.
In a message on the protest movement's Facebook page, organizers voiced disappointment, demanding apologies from the president and the dismissed prime minister, and the firing of Antananarivo's administrator.
Namibia's tourism industry is expected to suffer over the next 3 years after a week-long wildfire ravaged over a third of its largest game reserve, Etosha National Park, a senior government official said. Sean Hogan has more.
Etosha National Park is one of the top tourist attractions in the southern African country. Official estimates show the fire damaged 38% of the nearly 8,000 square mile park, but unofficial assessments suggest the damage may be worse. An unknown number of animals had been killed.
Insofar as the impact is concerned, it's still early days.
Sikongo Haihumbo from Namibia's Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism says they are continuing to assess the impact. However, he says the park is still open for business.
Because the fires have died out effectively inside the park. And therefore, it is safe for one to go back to the park or to go to the park. And then management will be in a position to guide our visitors.
And that's how we come to the end of this day's edition. It's Thursday, the 2nd of October's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow after the 6 a.m. news. Coming up, though, we zoom into the Central African region of the continent to find out what's making news there with our analyst, and that's Aaron Ngambi. Stay tuned.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender-based violence GBV zikuononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva yankhulani, ngati mwakhuzidwa funani chithandizo chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 14 a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julai kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, kukhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhuzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. Imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Kutenga kukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, it's time now to take a look at stories that have made or are making headlines in the Central African region of our continent. And this is where we speak to our resident analyst, Aaron Ngambi, to unpack these stories. Aaron, a very good morning to you on the 2nd of October. How are you doing?
Morning, Asanda, and good morning to our listeners. I'm feeling much better today.
Right. Aaron Ngambi is a geopolitical analyst. You've been jet-setting, so I'm not even sure where you're joining us from today. But let's start with the Cameroon's President, Paul Biya, who has launched an AI-delivered election bid. Very interesting that Africa's longest-serving president, who's seen as being an old man, is now using technology that would be mostly associated with young people. It's a future mechanism. And what do you make of this AI-inspired election campaign that is decided to delve into?
Well, first of all, good luck following my trips. I'm all over the place. I'm actually in Texas today.
Okay.
But yes, it's interesting to see what's happening in Cameroon. Now, the long and short story of it is that Paul Biya, who has been in power for almost 43 years old, he wants to seek a term that will be an eighth term, and he's over 90 years old. I think it's 92 years old. So what's been going on is that he's been out of the public for a long time. In fact, spending more time in Geneva and Switzerland more than in Cameroon. And speculations are that he's unwell, he's not been seen in public. Therefore, people were expecting that now that the elections are upon us in Cameroon, I think they're supposed to take place on the 12th of October. They were hoping that they will see their president in public campaigning, having rallies, and going around meeting people. But that is not the case. Instead, his campaign team has produced an AI-generated video, which is only about 2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And it is really the difference between reality and what you said, technology. Because if you look at the AI-generated video by Paul Biya's team, it is so fake that it does not even represent what is on the ground. It talks about how, he is strong in terms of security, he has experience, he cares about the youth and young people, and also women empowerment. But if you look at the scales of poverty in Cameroon, you look at what is going on, even just the divide between the Anglophone and the Francophone Cameroon, it shows you that even this AI message is detached from reality.
Does it also exacerbate those concerns that he is of ill health because of his old age and is unable to make public appearances, that he would appear virtually in a way?
Exactly. So the only thing that is left for the Cameroonian to see is on the actual day, the voting day, if this man will even show up at the voting booth. Or maybe they'll tell us that he's voted electronically, because as we speak now, the rumor is that he was in Cameroon, but now he's left for Egypt for whatever reasons. Of course, they wouldn't say it's for health reasons, because then he looks unfit for office. So this has become a big issue just days up to the elections. But nonetheless, it is a concern for most Cameroonians. And it doesn't seem that it bothers the powers that be. Are so fixed in getting him an eighth term that his team will do anything, even make up an AI video.
Where else have we seen this virtual strategy when it comes to politics and electioneering? This, what they call the metaverse politics. And what challenges would it pose for Cameroon, this campaign?
Yeah, when they say metaverse, they're referring to basically Facebook and virtual and AI, the technologies. But we saw some of that play out in the previous US presidential elections. We saw how Donald Trump was accusing Kamala Harris's team that they're basically using AI images and videos to show that she had crowds and following. But of course, no one knows if that's true or not, because Donald Trump says all sorts of things that it's difficult to verify some of the things that he says. But yes, it seems like to some extent, some politics in the US and some politics in other parts of the world are slowly trying to use this AI systems to either put a message out there or even use it for image building to project a certain narrative. But by and large, the way that the Cameroonian government has been using it, just the 2-minute video that they produced, and I saw it, it looks so fake. It doesn't look like it's a video from an ordinary Cameroonian society or even community.
We live in interesting times, Aaron. Let's move to the Democratic Republic of Congo now, where the former president there, Joseph Kabila, has been sentenced to death by a military court. What can you tell us there?
Joseph Kabila is a mystery figure. He's a very interesting man. Remember the allegations that Rwanda was backing the M23 rebels, and Rwanda kept denying that, even though the United Nations did verify that there was some sort of support coming from Rwanda for the M23 rebels. there were allegations that followed that Joseph Kabila himself, the former president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, was in fact also supporting M23s. Now, remember that he left the DR Congo for South Africa. You know, he imposed himself in exile and was in South Africa for over 2 years. And he denied all these allegations. But lo and behold, beginning of this year, Joseph Kabila returns to the DR Congo, and guess where he lands? He actually lands in Goma, in one of the cities that have been taken over by the M23 rebels. So basically, he's given entrance back into the country, not by the government of the DR Congo, the Tshisekedi regime, but actually by the rebels. So the rebels welcomed him, and he was in Goma for some time. Now, since the delivery of this military tribunal, it seems that nobody knows his whereabouts. So we don't know if he's gone back to South Africa or if he's still in the rebel-controlled M23 area in the eastern part of the DR Congo.
So would this sentencing actually play out then? Because little is known about his whereabouts, as you say, and this would be something that makes him further stay away from the DRC.
Well, two things to notice about that. First of all, he did not appear in court himself. Secondly, he was not even represented by any legal counsel. And so that means that he was sentenced in absentia. Now, this is a military tribunal that has found him guilty of, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and things like that. So what will likely happen is that he'll probably have to, I don't think he will show up. He'll probably have to find a way that he presents himself to the people of the DR Congo, because all that he wants to do, there are rumors that he wants to make a comeback into politics. Even though he ruled the DR Congo for 18 years, he handpicked Tshisekedi himself against the others who were contending. Remember, he even stopped Moise Katumbi from being on the ballot because he thought Moise Katumbi would defeat his favor, who was Tshisekedi. So since the falling out with Tshisekedi, Joseph Kabila has taken it upon himself that he wants to make a comeback. He wants to participate in politics. And so some people think this military tribunal is politically motivated. And even Joseph Kabila himself has dismissed it. He's basically calls it oppression by the judiciary. And so I think it's going to find a way, in one way or the other, he's going to show up on the scene and is going to make a case that this is persecution against him and that there are people that don't want him to come back actively in politics, and this is why it's taking place. Nonetheless, this is a military tribunal, and so they can sentence you either in your presence or in absentia.
All right, let's move to Gabon now. The ruling party there is leading in these post-coup elections that we've been speaking about here on Rise and Shine. So the Democratic Union of Builders under President Brice Oligui Nguema has taken the lead. How many parliamentary seats have they garnered?
As we speak now, they've garnered about 55 seats. They're supposed to be about 145 seats. They're in a slight lead, and this is up against the previous regime of the Bongo family that ruled Gabon for 50 years. And so this new political party that is led by a former military general, now a politician, seems to be gaining support. What is interesting is that during the elections previously, these are legislative elections, but the actual elections that ushered this military leader into office happened actually 2 or 3 months after the military coup. And what he was looking for is basically legitimacy, to show that this is a transfer from military rule to actually normal or ordinary rule. But the problem that remained was on the legislative councils. So he needs the legitimacy from that. And that is why they're having these elections now, to restructure, to rebrand the legislative structure as well as the constitution. By and large, the constitution was already, there was an electoral code that was controversial, that was foregone when the military leader was ruling, because in that electoral code, he was not eligible to run because he was from the military. But nonetheless, being that controversial, that was a battle that was fought, and now he's legitimate in a sense, but he's actually looking for full legitimacy, and that's why we have these legislative council elections.
There will be a second round of elections. When will those be, and what do you predict the final makeup of parliament will be?
Right now, I think there are about 77 seats that are up for grabs for the next round of elections, and that will be within this month. And my prediction would be that the the incumbent and the current political party actually takes up the seats, and that would give them two-thirds majority in the legislative council, and that is definitely the goal here. The goal is again for the current president Bryce to actually get full legitimacy as a non-military leader, as a transition and transformed political figure.
Let's go to Angola now. The country is bidding for a minority state, or stake rather, in De Beers as part of restructuring plans, the mining company for diamonds. What does this mean for Botswana, who had said that they wanted to take control of De Beers?
Well, Botswana and De Beers have a very interesting arrangement. In fact, it's been like that for over a very long period of time, since the beginning of the founding of that country. And it seems that it's played actually in favor of Botswana. It was a deal that was crafted by the founding fathers of Botswana. It's called Debswana. This Debswana arrangement is where Botswana, through an incorporated company as a government, they own 50% of what De Beers owns and runs in the diamond industry. So it's a 50-50 arrangement, but it seems like Botswana wants more stake and more shares in this arrangement. And we've seen that President Duma Boko has been pushing for more shares and restructuring this arrangement, thinking that because they produce the diamonds, then they should get more than 50%, even though De Beers is a company that basically has a monopoly on the diamond industry. Now, what is playing out in Angola is that Angola wants a similar arrangement from what Botswana has had for a long time, except that Angola is looking for a minority shareholding. They're not looking for a 50-50 kind of arrangement. But this is a start because they've never had this kind of arrangement with the BS from the beginning. Therefore, this is a step in the right direction. They want to go in, but go in with minor shares, and then probably maybe work an arrangement that looks like Botswana and move towards the direction of Botswana.
What would that entail, though? Angola being the Africa's largest diamond producer, could they enter, if they do get into a partnership with Botswana, what would that look like and what would it entail or need to entail?
That will look like exactly what we see in Botswana. That would be game-changing, because in Botswana, you need to realize that the diamond industry really much not only contributes largely to the GDP, but it services a lot of other industries in the country. So Botswana went from just not producing raw diamonds, but actually producing these diamonds and processing before they export. And that is a value addition. This is what Angola might want to do. And if they do that, that means they'll create jobs for their people. They'll create other industry that will service this diamond industry services. And therefore, it will probably try to bring the situation a little bit better in Angola. Because if you recall, the last few times we've discussed Angola, there's been a lot of unrest in Angola. There's been protests about oil prices and food commodities and things going up every day. And people are just fed up with the same party that fought for the independence in the 1970s, but has failed to deliver goods and services to them.
Aaron, we're going to leave it there for this Thursday. I don't know how you started your October, but was it on a good note?
I have COVID. The last few days I've been down with COVID, so I guess it's.
Oh man, I thought you'd be.
I think it's on a good note though, but I'm so much better today.
That's great to hear. It's a new month and the year is almost over. But I think you're one person who's not regretting that the year is over because you've been doing the most this year. I think you've achieved at least 80% of your goals.
I think so too. But next year will be more busy. We have elections in Zambia, so looking forward to that.
Awesome. It's always great having these catch-up sessions with you, Aaron. Please do get 100% better, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Aaron Ngambi is a geopolitical analyst, giving us his analysis and insights on stories making headlines in Central Africa. 6:30 is our time, Central African. Let's say good morning to Jolani Tulo Mwepe with news headlines.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines. Demand for the resignation of Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina is escalating. This as hundreds of protesters across the country continued with their demonstrations yesterday that have shaken the government. At least 30 people have been killed and 55 injured after a makeshift scaffolding collapsed in a town about 70 kilometers east of the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. And finally, the global summit flotilla says multiple of their vessels have been illegally intercepted and boarded by Israeli occupation forces in international waters. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
And now let's get our first full sports bulletin from Fikile Lingwati on this 2nd of October. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Asanda. We kick off with football news. Title holders Paris Saint-Germain came from behind to beat Barcelona 2-1 with a last-minute goal in the Champions League on Wednesday night. The clash lived up to its billing, despite Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele missing out, injured, for an understrength PSG, with Lamine Yamal showing flashes of his brilliance for the hosts. Barcelona went ahead in the 19th minute as a well-worked move ended with Marcus Rashford setting up Ferran Torres to score. Seni Mayulu equalized late in the first half for PSG, and Ashraf Hakimi set up substitute Gonzalo Ramos to net a 90th minute winner as PSG made it 2 victories from 2 outings. Malawi head coach Kalisto Pasua has maintained 24 of the 26 players who featured in last month's FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Namibia and Liberia in the final 25-man squad for the upcoming encounters against Equatorial Guinea and Sao Tome and Principe. The Flames will host Equatorial Guinea on the 19th of October 2025 at the Bingu National Stadium before traveling to Tunis for the away fixture against Sao Tome and Principe on the 13th of October. Coach Pasua's charges are expected to regroup in Lilongwe on Sunday to begin preparations for the 2 fixtures. Now, tennis news. Jannik Sinner is back to his best in a 6-2, 6-2 victory over American teenager Leonard Tin in China's Open final as the world number 2 picked up his 3rd title of the year and 21st tour-level trophy overall. Carlos Alcaraz's Japan Open title and Sinner triumph marked the first time since 2020 that the world number 1 and 2 both claimed trophies in the same week after Novak Djokovic in Dubai and Rafael Nadal Acapulco managed the feat.
Very, very special place for me, but I was my team. Thanks for understanding and working. Not all the team is here, so hopefully the rest is watching from home, and all the people who I have around, very honest people. So thanks for working with me. We will try to improve and push.
And finally, with athletics, the president of the International Paralympic Committee says he knows there will be reaction from other countries over the decision to lift a ban on Russian and Belarusian athletes. IPC members voted on Saturday to lift a partial ban, meaning the athletes can compete under their nation's flags at future international events such as the 2026 Winter Paralympics. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's now check in with the world of business as we get our first update for the 2nd of October on Thursday. Here's Tabiso Lehuku with those details.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. Namibia's tourism industry is expected to struggle over the next 3 years. Last month, a week-long wildfire ravaged over a third of Etosha National Park, which is the country's largest game reserve. A recent report by financial services firm Simonis Storm Securities shows that the country's tourism sector had only just recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic, with hotel occupancy reaching 67.55% in August, which is the highest it has been since 2019. In 2022, the tourism sector contributed 6.9% to Namibia's gross domestic product. The South African National Taxi Council says it will observe October Transport Month under the theme of striving for safety, service and embracing technology by building a taxi industry of substance. According to Santaco's national spokesperson, Machikidi Rebecca Pala, the month commenced with their participation in the Smarter Mobility Africa Summit in Sandton, north of Johannesburg, which wraps today. Pala says that their promise during this Transport Month is to strive for safer journeys, a better service and smarter ways of doing business.
The campaign signals Santaco's commitment to elevating commuter experience through safer operations, improved service delivery, and the gradual adoption of smarter technologies that strengthen the sustainability of the taxi industry. Beyond the summit, Santaco will take its message directly to commuters and operators through our Hlokomela Road Safety and Customer Service campaign. The campaign will visit taxi ranks as well as routes where service shortfalls have been identified, where we'll be reinforcing Santaco's dedication to continuous improvement, accountability, as well as the well-being of passengers.
The South African Social Security Agency has confirmed that it has extended the notice period of the termination of the Master Services Agreement with the Postbank for the next 3 months. The confirmation comes after Postbank announced that the agreement between the two entities remains firmly in place. The termination of the agreement, where Postbank managed the cash collection services for social grants, was supported to take place at the end of September, following various concerns and allegations. At the time, SASSA assured beneficiaries that grant payments will continue to be made. The agency's Andile Shona explains further.
The South African Social Security Agency can confirm that it has extended the notice period of the termination of the Master Services Agreement with Postbank for further 3 months. This decision has been made to allow the Executive Authority time and space to deliberate on various issues from the two entities and give guidance.
Oil workers in Nigeria have agreed to call off a strike after talks with government officials and management at the Dangote refinery, owned by Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote. The strike had forced Nigeria's grid operator to ration electricity to avoid a nationwide blackout, as gas supplies plunged on the second day of a walkout by workers at the refinery. The BBC's Ijoema Ndukwe has the latest.
Officials at the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria say the row was triggered after more than 800 of its members were dismissed from the Dangote refinery for joining the union. After a 2-day impasse, management at what is Africa's largest refinery has agreed to reassign staff to other jobs within the Dangote Group without loss of pay. The Labour Minister, who mediated the talks, told the meeting that unionisation was a right of workers and should be respected.
Meta Platforms says it will begin using people's interactions with its generative AI tools to personalize content and advertising across its apps such as Facebook and Instagram starting on the 16th of December. Meta says users will be notified of the changes from the 7th of October and they will not have an option to opt out, though the update applies only to those who use Meta. Meta says users' interactions with its AI features, whether voice or text, will be added to existing data such as likes and follows to shape recommendations for content and ads, including reels and ads. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 483, Botswana 13 pula 20, Kenya 128 shilling 518, and Zambia 23 kwacha 86. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 rubles 32. Russia, 82 rubles 6. India, 88 rupees 70. China, 71.12. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 17 rand 21 cents. 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,864 and platinum $1,558 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $65.70 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
All right, it's that time where we bring you our G20 fact, and as usual on this Thursday, here's another one. Did you know South Africa will host approximately 130 working group meetings and 23 ministerial level meetings throughout the year ahead of the country hosting the two-day G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg from November 22nd, marking the first time the summit is held in Africa. It's going to be under the theme Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability. That's our G20 fact for this Thursday.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
Day one of the Smarter Mobility Africa Summit 2025 has wrapped up at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg, South Africa. The event, which brings together transport experts and city planners from across Africa, has been exploring how cities can become more accessible, sustainable, and people-centered. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange attended the first day of the event and filed this report.
As South Africa's cities grow, the challenge of moving people efficiently and safely becomes more pressing. Leaders at the summit are focusing on what a new era of urban mobility could look like, where transport is seen as a right, not a privilege. Luthando Maboza, Executive Director of Transport at the City of Johannesburg in South Africa, spoke on building a city focused on people rather than vehicles.
What the new urban era means, it means creating a Johannesburg where mobility is a right, not a privilege, where every resident can move safely, affordable and sustainable through a city that's built for people, not just vehicles. So I think our emphasis is more on building non-motorized transport, reducing reliance on private cars, and investing in transit-oriented development.
The conversation also highlighted the need to rethink how people connect with transport systems outside city centers. Tebo Khobe, Chief Executive Officer for Gautrain Management Agency, highlighted the need for mobility systems that are accessible from the suburbs, not just central hubs.
When you think about it, that congestion now no more sits on the freeway, it now sits in the suburbs. It means that the idea that somebody could drive from the suburb to a central node where they will then connect to a mobility system that will take them into another city or into another province is false. In actual fact, what we need to build as a new mobility era, it's the accessibility that starts in the suburbs. It is about us making sure that people can access mobility systems closer to where they live.
For the taxi industry, transitioning to modern mobility systems comes with unique challenges. Matigidi Rebecca Pala, spokesperson for the South African National Taxi Council, SANTACO, explained the challenges of introducing new technologies like automated fare systems in the taxi industry.
The biggest question mark is still the question of feasibility and infrastructure. When you talk about, for instance, using automated fare collection systems, what does that look like in terms of infrastructure? So a lot of people have asked, why is it taking us so long to trial so many systems? It's because of that. Our industry is quite unique. The needs of our commuters are quite unique. The needs of a commuter in Limpopo and the needs of a commuter in Alexandra are completely different. But there's also the issue of feasibility, to say what would be feasible in keeping with the kind of material conditions that the industry is dealing with.
Across borders, other African cities are also prioritizing people-centered planning and public participation in mobility decisions. Ibrahim Nyangoya, Minister of Mobility in Nairobi City County in Kenya, emphasized the importance of public participation in urban mobility planning and development.
One of the things that we are happy with as Kenyans is that the 2010 Constitution really put that humanity and the trust, or as a people, into the Constitution in every, I would say, the policies, the legal frameworks that we handle as far as development in the new urban era is concerned. First, we have what is called a public participation. For you to be able to scale up activities or innovations of such magnitude, you have to work with the people.
Day one of the Smarter Mobility Africa Summit 2025 highlighted that the future of transport in Africa is not just about technology or vehicles, but about people, accessibility and sustainability. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
6:47 Central African time it is. Let's take a look at this story. Deputy Director General responsible for regulation at the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources says South Africa will rely on natural gas as a source of energy in the near future. He was speaking at the 5th Annual African Energy Week, currently underway at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, or the CTICC. The event is Africa's largest gathering of energy leaders, investors, policymakers and innovators. Over 7,000 delegates from across the world are attending. Lerato Dlalisa reports.
The discussion on the opening day of the conference has centered on the need for drilling both gas and oil. Deputy Director General responsible for regulation, Tsidiso Maqubela, says the gathering comes at a time when South Africa currently claims to have significant potential to tap into these energies over time.
And it also brings all of us together at a time where oil and gas is being found. For example, in Namibia, there's huge potential for oil and gas in South Africa. Of course, we haven't managed to get it off the ground, but we are sure that in a few years we'll be able to benefit from this. The other thing is that we want to invest, gas importation, LNG, to make sure that we benefit from electricity as part of the transition.
Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chambers, NJ Ayuk, says Africa must move quickly to drive its energy projects forward.
We need to move fast. We got a window of opportunity to drive what is. We can still do that, doing some of the things that keep us back. And that's why I urge the public leadership, ministers, Prime Minister, when we sign deals, cut delays, cut red tape, get some of these bureaucrats and hold things from moving, our continent is moving. That's how we get the drill done. That's how we get it. We need to sign those agreements, approve or stop the bureaucrats.
Authorities say the conference is not only about energy security, but also about positioning Africa as a competitive destination for sustainable investment. Godfrey Moagi is the CEO of the South African National Petroleum Company.
South Africa went through a difficult time with electricity, and what we cannot afford is actually going into fuel sharing. We need to avoid that. Africa and South Africa is energy hungry. We've got big opportunities coming our way, and we cannot lose that. Why should we invest in South Africa and Africa? We've got a diversified economy, which actually gives us good opportunities, progressive marketing, emerging markets as a country.
Earlier, there was a protest outside the conference by environmental activists, including Greenpeace and Green Connection. Makubela says South Africa still relies on fossil fuels and coal, and while a greener energy transition is needed, it cannot compromise energy security. The conference runs until Friday at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. I'm Lerato Dlalisa for SABC News in Cape Town.
Business leaders, investors and entrepreneurs gathered in Johannesburg, South Africa at the Invest Fest 2025, a premier destination for businesses to learn, network and grow. The event explored how corporates, investors and development partners could unlock greater flows of capital into small and medium enterprises and how this fuels job creation, innovation and inclusive growth. Channel Africa's Nhlanhla Mahlangu reports.
More than 300 entrepreneurs, investors, corporates and development agencies attended the 2025 edition of InvestFest in Johannesburg, South Africa. Hosted by Anglo-America's Impact Finance Network, the business and networking extravaganza blended financial empowerment and culture into one powerful conference dedicated to financial literacy, business growth and networking. Nolita Fakude, chair of Anglo-America's South African Management Board, said they are determined to play their part in partnering to build a better future for all stakeholders in Southern Africa.
That commitment has never been more important than it is today for us, especially as we embrace the exciting future possibilities ahead of us with the recently announced merger of Anglo-American with Tech Resources. As Anglo-Tech, we will be a stronger, more competitive global leader in the mining industry. And what this means, rather, for South Africa is that we are even better positioned to support the attainment of our country's national priorities, including entrepreneurial development and the growth of small and medium enterprises, thus help reduce unemployment.
She says she's optimistic about what can be achieved when working together.
The continued growth of the Impact Finance Network demonstrates that there is both appetite and capacity for impact investment in our markets. Most importantly, the energy and innovation I see from entrepreneurs across South Africa gives us all confidence that we are building something truly sustainable and transformative. The small and medium enterprises we support through the IFN and our programs are not just businesses, they are the backbone of economic transformation in South Africa. They represent opportunity, progress, and the practical reality of how we build a more inclusive economy. Therefore, ours in this investment festival today is to deliberate on how we as partners can raise the bar, especially because building entrepreneurial resilience is a shared responsibility, one that calls on all of us to think beyond our individual interests and towards collective impact.
The event featured trade and opportunity roundtables exploring high potential trade and investment opportunities in Zambia, Botswana, and South Africa's Northern Cape. These interactive sessions brought together market insiders, investors, and business leaders to map out concrete partnerships, supply chain solutions, and growth pathways both across Africa and into global export markets. Edmund Higginbottom from Verdant Capital led a session on how to build better links with Botswana.
We think it's important that we build the ecosystem, we build the investment ecosystem for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and many of these businesses will become large companies and local champions and national champions over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I'm looking to meet interesting businesses here who are looking for funding over the next few years in Botswana, in the SADC region. We hope we'll be able to assist them through investments from our fund in 2026 and thereafter. And we're very happy to be supporting the ecosystem that we are attending.
The event concluded with high-energy pitch sessions featuring standout SMMEs from the Impact Finance Network. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Nhlanhla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
An Ebola outbreak in a southwestern province of the Democratic Republic of the Congo is escalating quickly. This as some health responders say they have less than a tenth of the funding needed to contain the deadly disease. Dr. Maury Keita is incident manager for Ebola outbreak in Kasai for the World Health Organization.
We are currently dealing with an epidemic concentrated in a limited number of health areas, which to some extent could provide like an opportunity for rapid control. So as for the moment, we only have one health district affected and 6 health area in this one health district. In terms of epidemiological situation, as of 29th of September, a total of 64 cases, 53 confirmed and 11 probable have been reported from Bulape Health Zone in Kasai Province in the Democratic Republic of Congo, including 42 deaths, 31 confirmed and 11 probable. So the overall case fatality ratio is roughly 66%. But 5 confirmed cases have been also reported among healthcare workers, including 3 deaths. Ebola is known as a disease deadly disease, so the case fatality rate is usually like over 50%. So for this specific outbreak, of the 53 confirmed cases, 31 have died and 22 are still alive, including 10 survivors and 12 patients who are currently hospitalized. So among these 10 survivors, there is a 7-year-old child. I think we have a windows of opportunity in this outbreak because for the moment, the outbreak is localized in only one health district. But in terms of approach, we are trying to strengthen, preparedness in the neighboring districts. So there are 6 neighboring health zones surrounding Bulape Health Zone in which, preparedness activities are taking place and the training of a rapid response team, prepositioning, PPEs items, and also vaccinating healthcare workers in these 6 health zones. So at the regional level also, I think WHO Afro is supporting countries, so neighboring DRC, to get ready to respond to any potential, imported cases. So this is what we are doing. But for the moment, we have a chance. The outbreak is still localized and confined in only one health district in which, we are now responding.
That was Dr. Maury Keita, Incident Manager for Ebola Outbreak in Kasai for the World Health Organization. It's now 7 o'clock Central African time. Good morning if you've just joined us. This is Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. From the African perspective, we bring you news and current affairs. My name is Asanda Beda. Alone in studio today, Peter Ndoro, feeling under the weather. If you missed that info in the previous hour, just catching you up on that. On www.channelafrica.co.za is where you can tune in on the SABC Plus. That's all via mobile phones, as well as live streaming on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 is our handle there. In this hour, we take a look at Botswana, marking 59 years of independence this week. And Namibia is rapidly emerging as one of Africa's most exciting energy frontiers. Opportunities there in offshore oil and gas, as well as plans in solar. We'll find out more about those stories and more. Let's start with our news update. Here's Jolani Tulo Mwepe to give us that, and then Figile Lingwati will follow with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Demand for the resignation of Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina is escalating. This is demonstrations that began in Antananarivo last week over nationwide water shortages, and power blackouts continued. President Rajoelina has since dissolved the government as pressure mounts. A message on the protest movement's Facebook page called for Rajoelina's resignation, as well as for the dissolution of the Election Commission. At least 30 people have been killed and 55 injured after a makeshift scaffolding collapsed in a town about 70 kilometers east of the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. Pilgrims have gathered at a church for an annual celebration. The BBC's Sami Awami has the story.
The accident happened early on Wednesday in Areti town, about 70 kilometers east of the capital Addis Ababa in northern Ethiopia. Worshippers had gathered at the local church for an annual celebration of St. Mary. A doctor at a local hospital has told the media that the victims include children and elderly people, and that the hospital is seeking support from the Red Cross to care for the injured. Many others are believed to be trapped in the rubble, and the authorities fear that the death toll could rise further.
Allies of the former president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, have rejected a death sentence handed to him by a military tribunal, calling it illegal and politically motivated. He was sentenced to death in absentia for crimes against humanity, treason, and backing the M23 rebels in eastern Congo. The BBC's Paul Njie has the story.
The Common Front for Congo, which includes parties allied to Joseph Kabila, said there was growing dictatorship and instrumentalization of the justice system for political gains. In a statement, the opposition group added that the conviction process was illegal and unacceptable. Nehemi Mwilanya, a former chief of staff of Kabila's administration, also described the verdict as a political decision aimed at excluding the ex-president from the political scene. A lawyer representing the plaintiffs celebrated the court ruling and accused the former leader of supporting the rebel movements in the country.
The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry taking place in Pretoria, South Africa, has adjourned until the 13th of October. In a statement, the Commission has attributed the adjournment to Crime Intelligence Boss General Dumisani Khumalo's ill health and the unavailability of Commissioner Sisi Baloyi next week. General Khumalo, who has been considered a key witness in the Madlanga Commission, fell sick yesterday after arriving at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College, where the Commission is sitting. National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola has confirmed that Khumalo is receiving the best medical care and is in good spirits. The Global Summit Flotilla says multiple of their vessels have been illegally intercepted and boarded by Israeli occupation forces in international waters. The boats are carrying activists, including former President Nelson Mandela's grandson, Mandla Mandela, heading to Gaza in an effort to deliver humanitarian aid to the besieged enclave. Ditaba Tsotetsi has more.
The Global Summit Flotilla says that prior to illegally boarding the ships, it appears as though the Israeli naval vessels intentionally damaged the ship communications. They say this is an attempt to block distress signals and stop the live stream of their illegal boat boarding. The activists say multiple boats have lost the communication and live stream coverage. They added that they are working around the clock to ensure they account for all participants and crew. These activists have also called on governments, world leaders, and international institutions to demand their safety.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, veteran Springbok centre Damien Dialende is looking forward to the most important game against Argentina on Saturday. And Golden Eaglets coach Gaba once more under 17 slots after Eagles' loss. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Botswana marked 59 years of independence this week under unusually subdued circumstances. With government unable to fund the traditional celebrations, many citizens turned to social soccer to mark the day. In his independence address, President Duma Boko urged unity even as the economy edges closer to crisis. Channel Africa's Shingai Madondo reports from Gaborone.
This monumental musical instrumentation was meant to vibrate through the terraces at the National Stadium in Gaborone, Botswana's capital city, on this Independence Day. But it was never to be, as the Southern African country is facing serious financial crisis stemming from a collapse in diamond revenues, thereby straining public finances and fueling social tensions. It is against this backdrop that President Duma Boko has pleaded with the citizens to remain united and work towards a common goal of confronting the country's socio-economic challenges in a collective manner.
We are a force to reckon when we are united and working together. It is our togetherness that is the umbrella for democratic change. We made history by dethroning former ruling Botswana Democratic Party from power. It is only when we work in unison that we can overcome all the challenges that our country is facing and enduring, whether small or big. The African continent can only heal from the current crisis and develop socially and economically by working together. It is only through coordination that all the countries across the globe can confront and overcome the challenges bedeviling the international community.
Boko said the country can only emerge from the current economic crisis that saw the Southern African country declaring a state of health emergency after health institutions ran out of medicines. Diamonds account for 80% of the country's exports and a third of government income, but demand has plunged amid the rise of cheaper lab-grown gems, slowing sales in the United States and weak laser demand in China. The Botswana government projects a fiscal deficit of 11% of gross domestic product GDP in 2025, the widest in the sub-Saharan Africa, with debt expected to double to 43% of the gross domestic product. Botswana Democratic Party Executive Secretary Ami Makoba said it has never happened in the history of Botswana that the country's Independence Day is celebrated without festivities and feasting.
I have come to the conclusion that it's necessary for me to intervene. Botswana expected a lot out of government. The government has not been able to honor the standard that has been set by previous governments. I've had no choice but to slaughter a few goats, a few sheep for people at least in my local community in order that Botswana can enjoy what they have come to know as Botswana Day. You cannot have Boipuso and an extra day over and above the ordinary established holidays of Boipuso and not have the festivities associated with it.
Botswana, once known as Bechuanaland during the colonial period, is now called for its majority ethnic group, the Tswana, and has garnered worldwide renown as a peaceful and growing affluent democratic state since independence. Reporting for Channel Africa from Gaborone here in Botswana, this is Ashingre Matondo.
Let's go to Kenya now, where the textile industry in the country is facing an uncertain future. With the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, now expired, factory workers in Kitengela outside Nairobi fear the end of the duty-free trade deal could unravel their livelihoods. Butlale Pele has more.
Every morning, thousands of men and women stream into Export Processing Zone in Kitengela on the edge of Nairobi. For 2 decades, the EPZ has thrived under AGOA, a U.S. program that opened America's markets to African exports without tariffs. For workers here, the deal was more than trade policy. It was a lifeline. Analysts say the end of AGOA could slash African exports to the U.S. by a quarter, hitting Kenya's apparel sector hardest. And for the people in Kitengela, the threat is deeply personal. Dennis Omar knows it firsthand. A father of 2, he says the factory gave him the means to build a stable home life.
You are good to stitch, but you are not good to give production because it's a production thing. But that's where I started living. The life was hand to mouth. The penny you're getting cannot even sustain you beyond the next day. But now immediately when I got the EPZ job, I think after 2 months I was able to rent my own house, have my own household things, and start now feeling how many other middle class people feeling, because the salary was somehow much better, and gaining the skills that I was trained, interacting with many people, changed my thinking, changed my life approach. Until by then I also got married.
Like many others, Omar is clinging to hope. He believes that Washington can still rethink the tariffs and the livelihoods they sustain.
Whatever I was getting, immediately whatever I started getting from EPZ enabled me to do many things in life. Yeah, so and now going forward, started getting kids and making kids. You know, getting kids is another thing, and also sustaining these kids, being a dad who can provide, and all was courtesy of EPZ job.
From his modest office, Omar says the consequences of AGOA's expiry extend far beyond his own family.
We are hoping and we are optimistic that the U.S. government is going to really rethink about AGOA tariffs.
At New White Garment, one of the largest factories in Kitengela, managers say the stakes could not be higher. The facility employs thousands and supports suppliers, transporters and small businesses across the community. Without AGOA, they warn the ripple effects will devastate more than just factory floors.
Actually, if it is not renewed, then that will be a disaster, because you see, we depend on AGOA to create job opportunity. Then it means that we need to scale down our operation, which will also affect not only the factory itself, but the entire community. We are talking about Kitengela community because this factory benefits most of the neighborhood community in terms of backward linkages, suppliers, and everything. They depend on this facility.
Investors too may quickly look elsewhere. Competing markets in Asia already offer cheaper costs and similar benefits.
The investors look at principle of comparative advantage, where the benefits, cost and benefits is a major issue. So if they're not going to get benefits from Kenya, definitely they will look for another place and say, let us take it to Vietnam or take it to Cambodia or take it to any other country that they look at that they can benefit.
For workers in Kitengela, the debate over tariffs is a matter of survival. Without AGOA, the middle-class dreams built through steady factory wages may vanish. The sewing machines still hum for now, but uncertainty lingers, and with it the fear that opportunity may soon unravel. AGOA's expiry leaves thousands of Kenyan workers waiting and hoping for answers. Washington is yet to announce if a new deal will follow. I'm Butlale Pele, SABC News.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Our fitness coach, her name is Yvonne Dimakatso Pasha. How to remain consistent with gyms, Dima, and I'm going to put you on the spot right now. As we are talking, I will send you my picture and I want you to tell me what you think I should work on. Because, you know, when I look at myself, Dima, I think I'm very handsome. I'm so good looking, oh my goodness. Like here at Channel Africa where I work, I think I'm one of the most good looking people ever. Like sometimes when I look at myself in the mirror, I never get used to how good I look. I'm just amazing.
You're okay with the way you're looking. You wish people could and now you want to put me on the spot.
Do I need gym?
Yeah. I mean, if you can just consider eating healthy, cutting down a few foodstuffs such as junk.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
In South Africa, delegates at the W20 Gauteng Outreach Dialogue are urging concrete measures to close the gender gap in financial inclusion, saying it is key to driving stronger economic growth and resilience across the continent. The gathering serves as a precursor to the W20 summit set to take place later this month. Organizers say the dialogue is about turning commitments into action, ensuring women are not left behind in global policy making. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
The dialogue held under the theme Mainstreaming Gender in G20 Policymaking, Advancing Economic Justice for Young Women also underscored that empowering young women can open new pathways for innovation and sustainable development. The University of Johannesburg Centre for the Study of Race is among the key partners in these engagements. Lebogang Ayo Bijola is UJ Community Engagement Specialist.
The reason we're having this dialogue today was to actually identify challenges and solutions that women are facing when it comes to economic and financial issues, and also how we can play a part in advocating and input into the upcoming G20 and Y20 summit that will be taking place. The most important thing that we identify today is that there's a need for financial inclusion when it comes to women. Also, in terms of socioeconomic issues, there are many things that we can come up with solutions to help them where we find them excluded. When you look at the policies in the financial industry, access to education, access to fourth industrial revolution tools, those are the things that young women are actually struggling with, but they can definitely be a change with the upcoming summits that are coming through.
She noted that many women continue to face cultural and structural barriers in financial decision-making and stressed that the G20 should adopt policies aimed at shaping solutions to overcome these challenges.
So the issue of peace and security is very significant for all of us from different culture, color and creed, and it's such an advantage that we are hosting the G20 as the first African country. So my message actually to the leaders is, let's take cognizance of the future generation. Our action should actually be able to sustain the future generation. The issue of peace for young women, for young children, for people from different cultures and communities is very important. The issue also of sustainable development. How are we playing a part as the older generation to educate the young people why peace is very important, and also look at the issue of climate change. Policies need to change to favor people that are participating in that specific sector. Many young women and children are actually working in the farms, but are the systems, financial system in those spaces favorable for them to be entrepreneurs?
For Hlengiwe Makubani, creative manager at Creative Development, this event has been a key takeaway experience.
Out of this event, I'm taking home how important it is as a Black woman that even though I'm coming from a place of respect when it comes to culture, but there's also a placement that needs to be had in the economy, especially as a young female. It's important for us to realize that we aren't just representing our families, but we're also representing ourselves and the future that we want to have.
As the Y20 summit approaches later this month, the Gauteng Outreach Dialogue has set the tone by calling for practical action on gender equality. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Johannesburg.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
It's 20 minutes past 7 on Rise and Shine. Do get in touch with us on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 is our handle across those. Now, Sierra Leone has officially joined the United Nations Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes, signaling a strong commitment to cooperation over shared rivers and lakes in West Africa. This move as climate change and population growth put increasing pressure on water resources across the region. To help us understand what this accession means for Sierra Leone and its neighbors, we joined live by Komlan Sangbana, legal officer in the Secretariat of the UN Water Convention. Komlan, welcome and good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Why is Sierra Leone's accession to the UN Water Convention such an important step, both nationally and for the entire region of West Africa?
Yes, thanks. Actually, Sierra Leone accession is highly significant as it demonstrates the country's commitment to strengthening transboundary water cooperation. And it sends also a very strong signal in leadership in West Africa, particularly as water is becoming increasingly central to development, resilience, and also regional stability. And now Sierra Leone is joining a group of West African nations that have acceded to the UN Water Convention recently. So actually we have 13 countries that join. 8 of them come from West Africa, and this accession are really align their water governance with international standard, embracing cooperative approaches to share basin management. So we really acknowledge this accession, highlighting the continent's strong and growing engagement in building a more predictable, cooperative and rule-based framework for managing shared water resources.
Two of those examples of those 13 countries you cite are Guinea and Liberia. As you say, Sierra Leone shares several rivers with neighboring countries. How does the convention help countries manage these shares or shared water peacefully and cooperatively?
Yes. The convention offers practical guidance for countries to join manage variability in water resources, weather flood, drought, seasonal change intensified by climate change. It also promotes early warning system, data, information exchange, and joint planning, all of which strengthen resilience. And importantly, it creating platforms for dialogue and negotiation, helping countries to develop such important legal framework to share sustainability of water resources. So we can say that the convention helped the countries to reduce the risk that competition over shared water escalates into disputes, turning water into a driver of cooperation rather than conflict. And when it comes to the Mano River, because we are talking here about specifically about the Mano River Union, which is comprised of 4 countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, which are shared multiple rivers and aquifer. The Water Convention will provide a common and legal institutional framework to help them to build trust and foster joint solutions to share challenges that is the water availability, hydropower development, agriculture, and ecosystem protection. And we are also, when it considers also this region, out of Sierra Leone, we also have Cote d'Ivoire, which is party. So we will work now with Guinea and Liberia to help them to join the convention and also to operationalize this MRU river transboundary water management body that is been set up to reinforce peace and integration and sustainable development in the region.
The region of West Africa sees unpredictable rainfall, and it's more and more lately, and longer dry seasons. How does joining the convention help countries like Sierra Leone adapt to these climate challenges?
Yes, as I said, the convention really helps countries to develop tools because they provide tools to the countries when it comes to dealing with climate change variability. So, and also provide guidance. And another aspect that is quite important for the country is really help the countries by providing legal and policy advice, capacity building, peer-to-peer exchange, and also guidance tools on issues such as climate change, but also groundwater management, which is also coming at the very front actually for when it comes to the cooperation. And new parties also benefit from being part of the convention's institutional platform where they can network with other countries, learn from best practices, and also access technical expertise from a broad range of partners with whom we are working across the globe at the regional and also regional level.
One of the convention's goals is to help prevent conflicts over water resources. Can you give examples of how it works in practice to foster this peace and stability? I think you mentioned earlier dialogue being an important element, as well as offering legal guidance to these countries.
Indeed, an example that I can provide is the development of legal agreement, because when it comes to the Africa, we need to keep in mind that we have around 63 international river basins across Africa, but less than 29% of those river basins are governed by cooperative frameworks, and less than 10% of the continental transboundary aquifers have joint management arrangement. That means that tensions may arise, conflict can also arise. So it's important to find a way to prevent those conflicts by enabling the development of a sustainable framework to facilitate dialogue between the countries. And it's where we come, helping the countries to engage together in building trust between the different countries to come with concrete solutions, concrete principles and obligations that can help them to negotiate peacefully across those river that they share. So we are engaged in several initiatives across the aquifer. I can mention one, for instance, which is the Senegal-Mauritanian Basin Aquifer, shared between some of the country in West Africa, but also helping actually some of the country in the southern part of Central Africa region, between DRC, for instance, and Zambia, around one of the river, the Shea, to help those countries to come with a concrete and agreement to preserve, protect, and use sustainably those rivers.
So 13 countries in Africa are parties to the convention, as you mentioned earlier. Do you see more momentum building and more nations joining? And what could this mean for water cooperation on the continent?
Definitely. The growing number of African countries acceding to the Water Conventions reflect really a strong continental momentum toward more, I would say, a robust transboundary water governance. And this trend is also in line with the African Union's Agenda 2063. And more specifically, let me maybe mention here the African Water Vision, which have just adopted this week in Dakar at the 14th session of the African Minister of Council of Water, which aims really to strengthen water governance at the continental level. So transboundary water basin, as I mentioned, which cover the majority of Africa's fresh water, can really serve as a vital platform for regional integration, economic cooperation, and peace building. So in the run, the growing African participation in the Water Convention will help transform those shared water from potential source of tension into driver of sustainable development, resilience, and also regional solidarity. So I say that 13, but now in the process we have more than 20 countries across Africa in the different regions that are in the process, and so we really I would say we look with very hope that water will improve in terms of transboundary water governance will improve in the near future with all those countries joining the convention and also contribute to the development of the water convention globally.
Komlan, thank you so much again for your time. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Great. Komlan Sangbana is legal officer in the Secretariat of the UN Water Convention, talking to us about Sierra Leone having officially joined the United Nations Convention on the protection and use of transboundary watercourses, of course, involving the commitment to cooperation when it comes to the shared rivers and lakes in the region of West Africa. Let's get our news headlines now, our time being 7:30 Central African time. Good morning, Jalani.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines. State media in Morocco say 2 people have been killed while attempting to storm a police station near the coastal city of Agadir. The deaths come as nationwide youth demonstrations continue. At least 30 people have been killed and 55 injured after a makeshift scaffolding collapsed in a town about 70 kilometers east of the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. And finally, rescuers are racing against time to extricate some 60 teenagers trapped under the remains of an Islamic boarding school that collapsed earlier this week due to foundation failure. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Now let's check in with the world of sports. We get the latest from Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Let's kick off with football news. The head coach of Nigeria's male under-17 team, also known as the Golden Eaglets, Manu Garba, is critical of the Confederation of African Football's decision to limit the number of teams that can qualify for the under-17 AFCON from WAFU B to 2. This after Nigeria's fell short again at the regional qualifying tournament. The Golden Eaglets were beaten 2-0 in the second semi-final of the WAFU B tournament on Tuesday night in the Ivory Coast, meaning they will not be part of the 2026 Under-17 AFCON and by extension the 2026 FIFA Under-17 World Cup, which has now become an annual tournament. After the latest setback, Garba, who led Nigeria to the FIFA Under-17 World Cup title in 2013, believes it is unfair to limit the zone, which has the strongest teams on the continent, to 2 teams. Title holders Paris Saint-Germain came from behind to beat Barcelona 2-1 with a last-minute goal in the Champions League. The clash lived up to its billing despite Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele missing out injured for an under-strength PSG, with Lamine Yamal showing flashes of his brilliance for the hosts. Barcelona went ahead in the 19th minute as well. Whacked move ended with Marcus Rashford setting up Ferran Torres to score. Seni Mayulu equalized late in the first half for PSG, and Ashraf Hakimi set up substitute Gonzalo Ramos to net a 90th minute winner as PSG made it 2 victories from 2 outings. On to rugby news. Veteran Springbok centre Damien Dialende believes Saturday's Rugby Championship decider against Argentina at Twickenham in London is the most important game of the year so far for the green and gold. Dialende is getting ready to win his 93rd Test cap for the Boks and feels that the team is on a strong footing ahead of what could prove to be a historic round 6 clash.
This game that we play this weekend is the most important game of the year so far. It will be a final for us. So we'll make sure we put 100% focus into that, and then a few of us have a couple of weeks off before end of year tour.
The Springboks welcome back Oxenchair to the front row, and with formidable scrum rangers throughout the Bong ranks, starting tight head Thomas Dutoy knows he can set a solid foundation before handing over to a behemoth like Wilco Low on the bench.
It's such a pleasure knowing that the guy who's going to come on is so destructive at scrum time and really carries himself well around the field. So yeah, for me, knowing my purpose, knowing my ability for the first 45, 50 minutes, however long it might be, it's brilliant for me. I'm loving my role in the team, and I'm very grateful for the guys around me that also pull their part and make me feel comfortable in this team and in this position that I'm in at the moment.
And lastly, Australia prop James Slipper, only the third player to reach the 150 international caps, has announced his retirement from rugby. 36-year-old is expected to wear the Wallaby jersey for the 151st and last time when Australia hosts New Zealand in the last round of the Rugby Championship in Perth on Saturday. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Thulisile Beda, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Thulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Time now to get the latest from the world of business as we get our economics news from Tabiso Lihogo.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. A business editor of The Guardian Nigeria, Jeff Iatse, has commended all parties involved in calling off a strike at Dangote Refinery. Iatse says that the two-day strike action affected some areas in the country. Addressing a media briefing in Abuja, President of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Festus Osifo, said the National Executive Council of the union met and resolved to suspend the strike as a mark of respect to the sacrifices made by the government and other stakeholders to broker peace. The union had accused the company of firing 800 unionized workers and replacing them with the 2,000 Indian workers. Iatse comments.
It has huge consequence for the entire economy. It has huge consequence for the lives of millions of Nigeria. I'm not sure you can. In Lagos where I live, it's difficult to get gas now just because of the 3 days industrial, 2 days industrial action. So that shows how much that has affected. The crisis has affected the lives of an ordinary person.
Political economist Professor Patrick Bond says U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on South African goods have led to a sharp drop in the country's exports to the U.S. during the second quarter of this year. Experts have warned that uncertainty over jobs and trade still hangs over South Africa following the expiration of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Bond says in the absence of any relief on AGOA, South African goods will now face standard tariffs on exports to the United States. This while certain products such as copper, pharmaceuticals and certain minerals are exempt. Bond elaborates.
So we're still at 30%, and I think for the most crucial exports hit hard now are since end of July are in citrus and the vineyard products, the wine and the grapes, and also macadamia nuts. So we're going to see lots of job losses in agriculture.
The South African Social Security Agency has confirmed that it has extended the notice period of the termination of the Master Services Agreement with Postbank for the next 3 months. The confirmation comes after Postbank announced that the agreement between the two entities remains firmly in place. The termination of the agreement, where a Postbank managed the cash collection services for social grants, was supposed to take place at the end of September, following various concerns and allegations. At the time, SASSA assured beneficiaries that the grant payments will continue to be made. The agency's Andile Chona explains.
The South African Social Security Agency can confirm that it has extended the notice period of the termination of the Master Services Agreement with Postbank for further 3 months.
Namibia's tourism industry is expected to struggle over the next 3 years. Last month, a week-long wildfire ravaged over a third of Etosha National Park, which is the country's largest game reserve. A recent report by financial services firm Simone Storm Securities shows that the country's tourism sector had only just recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic, with hotel occupancy reaching 67.55 in August, which is the highest it has been since 2019. In 2022, the tourism sector contributed 6.9% to Namibia's gross domestic product. Oil prices have risen, snapping a 3-day losing streak and rebounding from a 16-week lows on prospects of tighter sanctions on Russian crude. Brent crude futures gained 15 US cents or 0.2% to 65.50 US dollars a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude climbed by 14 cents or 0.2% to $61.92 a barrel. The Group of 7 Nations finance ministers says that they will take steps to increase pressure on Russia by targeting those who are continuing to increase their purchases of Russian oil and those that are facilitating circumvention. The US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,483 naira, Botswana 13 pula 20, Kenya 128 shilling 518, and Zambia 23 kwacha 86. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 rubles 32, Russia 82 rubles 6, India 88 rupees 70, China 71.12, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 21 cents. 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,864 and platinum $1,558 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $65.70 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabisolo Hoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Cameroon is gearing up for a critical presidential election on 12 October. 12 candidates are in the race, including long-serving incumbent Paul Biya, who has been in power for 43 years and is seeking an 8th term at the age of 92. Opposition figures are trying to unite behind a single candidate, while younger candidates like Cabral Libi are energizing voters with calls for change. To help us understand the dynamics of this election, we're joined on the line by political analyst Paul Anchang. Paul, always great catching up with you. How are you on this Thursday?
Good morning. Thank you thank you much for having me on this end. Welcome to you guys all the way from Yaoundé, Cameroon. It's an exciting moment in Cameroon. We are on the campaign trail and we are seeing the effervescence of the campaign trail. So happy to share that with you guys on the other side.
All right, so there's excitement then. That's how you describe the mood in Cameroon right now.
Yes, there's excitement, of course. There's excitement because you have to understand that with the presidential election in any country, it's a very pivotal election. Whoever comes to the helm of the state or the helm of the nation will be able to decide a lot of things for the nation, especially the future of the nation. In Cameroon in particular, we have about 60 to 70% of the nation that is comprised of youth. And so these youth have many issues and many concerns such as unemployment, their future, or maybe the system as well as what they see. Also, there are also systemic problems such as insecurity, maybe the economic development. But most problems that we've seen in Cameroon that the people are asking for solutions for are mostly interior problems and public policies, maybe the fight against corruption, the fight against insecurity. And so we'll see the 12 political candidates who have been invented by 12 different political parties to see what they're proposing to the population as well. So as we're seeing the crescendo of the elections move up, we're also seeing the crescendo of the candidates vehicling their messages and attacking each other as well. And seeing whether they could, as you rightly said, can they be a consensus? Can they be a consensual candidate? Or we'll see all 12 candidates fighting for each other?
Including Paul Biya at 92 in those 12 candidates. But Bello Buba Maigari is building alliances, and there are calls for opposition to unify. Is that likely to happen?
Well, there's going to be a collective union of some opposition parties that are going to unite against with a consensual candidate. Mind you, in terms of the opposition, there are opposition parties who were not retained as definitive candidates on the presidential elections. So behind the scenes, also they're also the electoral factions and the electoral militants and sympathizers that are garnering them to be able to see if or not they will be able to get a consensual candidate. But just like you rightly said, Belukuba Maigari is regarded on the political scene in Cameroon as someone who has a lot of experience. He was President Paul Biya's collaborator for more than 30 years. He was the vice prime minister as well. So we've seen him rally some opposition key figures such as Akere Muna, who is known on the international as a civil society, but also a political activist as well. We've seen him rally a younger candidate in the name of Clarkson, who is new to the political scene, but is also very well in terms of civil society, well known. We are also seeing some classical other political parties seeking to be able to give their allegiance to Belbuba Maigari. So the effervescence of the election is actually rising up. Now the key issue in the election really is how many political parties can cover the national territory. Because mind you, in Cameroon, the elections is one round. So the ability of a political party through its budget, through its militants and sympathizers to be able to cover the national territory, because in the voting booth on the voting day in Cameroon, each political party needs to have at least two persons in the voting booth as well as observers. So it's very critical at this stage. The political parties that can be able to cover the national territory are those political parties that can be able to actually see whether or not they can compete effectively during this presidential election. And so we can count the incumbent President Pobia, we can see Belukuba Maigari. We also see another collaborator of the President of the Republic, a former collaborator, that's the right word to say, Issa Chiroma Bakari. Now, it's important to realize Belukuba Maigari and Issa Chiroma Bakari, they come from the same region. So in the northern region of Cameroon, there's been sort of a rupture, and so there's a stiff competition in saying which political party will be able to effectively candidate can emerge as the winner, because in the northern part of Cameroon, that electorate counts for about 34% of the vote. So it's a key and very pivotal vote. And as we're seeing the campaign move, most of the political party candidates are moving towards the north to be able to see if they can be able to vie for the votes from that particular area of the country.
Given that competition, then, who could be seen as the unifying leader or the unifying figure for the opposition leaders?
Now, that's a very important question. Now, the popular candidate who was seen as the key opposition leader was Maurice Kamto. Unfortunately, he wasn't retained or didn't have a political party that was able to invest him in the presidential election. So he did not give voting directions to any particular candidate. The voting directive he gave was more Cameroonians to be able to vote with their own conscience as to who they want to see as a candidate. That said, it left most of the other 11 opposition political candidates trying to rally to see if they can be able to get other political parties to be able to rally with them. So far, we have seen Bello Buba Maigari being able to get a collective of about 3 or 4 political opposition parties to his tangent. We have seen Issa Chiroma Bakari also, he's got a lot of momentum on the field in terms of mobilization, because mind you, in Cameroon political parties, what is usually key in terms of electoral strategy is usually mobilization. The more you have mobilization, the more you're able to get the momentum. Now, it's left us for us as political analysts or as the observers to be able to see, does the momentum change from those who mobilize? Are they effective voters, or are they just people who are gathering to be able to listen to a candidate who they effectively vote? So that's the real challenge at this particular point in time, because the incumbent, who has a CPDM political party, has already an arsenal of a political party that's very, very well implanted towards the national territory.
Let's talk young people now. They make up about 62% of Cameroon's population. We've got Cabral Libi, who is drawing support from these young voters. What's important to note in terms of his strategy there and how he's managed to gather this young votes?
Now, Cabral Libi is a very good orator. So just like you rightly pointed out, he was in the elections in 2018, and he came out third. So he's learned his lessons. At the same time, also, he's a member of parliament, so he's a parliamentarian. So he has a very good strategy of mobilization. He mixes that with a lot of proximity. Now he has been able to make sure his political party has representation throughout the national territory. So he's rightfully a strong contender in this election. Another contender who is young that many people haven't seen, but is rising, is someone called Hiram Hiodi. He's the youngest. He's the youngest candidate. He's 37 years old. He used to be in Canada. He came back home, so he has been pushing for the platform. That has a lot of youth that have garnered towards this platform. Where in those that are actually managing the campaign, running the campaign, they are quite youthful. His spokesperson is only 23 years of age. So therefore, you can really understand there's a lot of momentum with him, because he has a lot of momentum on social media. Now we have Cabral Libi, who has a lot of momentum with social media. He has momentum with mobilization. He equally has mobilization with momentum with the diaspora. Now it's left to see if he will be able to rival in terms of the incumbent, or rival equally Beda Maigari, because the key here is Cabral Libi has a momentum towards the national territory. But will he be able to conquer the north, where you have Beda Maigari, who is quite popular? You have Kula Chiroma, who is popular, and you equally have the incumbent, who has a very resilient base in the north. So therefore, we are seeing a youthful momentum, because equally it's important to note in Cameroon, it's about 60 to 70% of the youth that make up the population. Now, how many of those were able to register with this particular election? There was an increase of about 2 million registered voters in the election. Many anticipate that most of those 2 million voters, about 80% of them, are actually youth. So therefore, whoever will be able to carry that momentum to be able to either convince these youthful voters to be able to move to the agenda will likely be able to be the one to win the election on October 12th.
How important will the youth vote be this time around for Cameroon?
I think it's very important, because there's been a lot of effort that has been done in terms of sensitization, in terms of civic and civil education, for youth to be able to be responsible and to be able to understand that their vote is their power. We've seen a lot of civil society organizations and associations go mobilize towards the field prior to the election campaign to remind youth of what they should do. Also, there's a lot of the question of insecurity in areas where many regions have faced insecurity. Most of those have been displaced from their regions of origin. Or there's a really a rise in the concern in the sensitization, in the education of youth. And equally as well, there's the key issue of unemployment. Most of these youth want to be able to address the concerns of unemployment, youthful unemployment. Can they actually get unemployment either through the state? Can they get jobs? Can they be employed? Can they actually come up with programs? Now, we see the different policies. Most of the opposition parties are proposing a rupture, a complete rupture, which will be able to bring maybe say referendums or economic policies that will be inclusive and participative. We're also seeing the incumbent party, the CPDM party, which is actually thinking that they want to be able to implement better changes and more changes. So really, the youths in this particular election are very, very, very critical. So they are very impactful. And we see the momentum with Cabral Libi, we see the momentum with Hiram Oyodi, we equally see the other generational voters, because it's important to understand. For me, as a political analyst, I see an election that is between two generations: a very youthful generation, very Cabral Libi, Hiram Oyodi, and we have an older generation that has been also at the helm of the state for quite a number of years, more than 30 years, where you could have the incumbent as in Paul Biya. You have Beda Maigari, who has also been a collaborator of the head of state, the incumbent, and you have Issa Chiroma as well, because they have been seen as collaborators. It's important also to note the president, the CPDM political party, which has the president of the republic, had an alliance with the UNDP political party of Bello Maigari before they broke the alliance. They equally had an alliance with Isha Chiroma of the FSNT before the alliance was broken prior to the elections. So it will be very key to see which way the voters will sway. Mind you as well, in the northern part of Cameroon, which is about 34% of the vote, there are many youthful voters. Now, which way would they sway? There's a popularity of Kebran being in the north. There's a rising momentum for Irami Yodi in the north. There's a political bastion of militants and sympathizers that have been shared between Issa Chiroma, Pedro Boba, and the incumbent President Paul Biya. And so this week we are likely to see all the candidates try to merge their efforts because we are already 5, 6 days into the campaign, the official campaign. We are likely to see in the next 5 days most of the political campaign managers focus their strategies on the north, 34% of the electoral vote, to see where they can be able to win those.
Opposition candidates have warned against fraud when it comes to these elections. How much weight do these concerns hold?
It is true. There are some opposition candidates that have geared their campaign towards the fight against corruption. We've seen Akere Mona, who was invested by the party there, and we've seen a young candidate, Ateki Sexta, and they joined Belububa Maigari. So that's another key important factor. Akere Mona has made his campaign really on the fight against corruption, and Belububa as well is trying to make his campaign on the fight against corruption. Now, we've also seen other candidates who are youthful candidates, such as Kabali B, who are saying that, of course, with this particular election, it's the electoral code that they are dealing with, but they view the election as it's the say of the voters. Therefore, if Cameroonians participate and vote, their voices will be heard. So it's a little bit mixed where you have a lot of political parties who are fighting corruption, but also it's pretty constant that most of the political parties in this particular election view that it is going to be up to the voters to be able to make a change because all the political parties at the level of voting booths equally have the chance to make sure that they have a representative at the voting booth. The challenge has always been with presidential elections in Cameroon, can a political candidate cover the national territory? Because when a political party or political candidate cannot cover the national territory, they have difficulty being able to, in terms of traceability, in terms of accountability, in terms of even knowing if in a collective measure, they were able to witness what happened in the voting booth.
We're going to leave it there, Paul. And of course, all eyes will be on Cameroon as the country votes. I'll definitely be having my eyes on that. I cannot forget it. It's going to be the day after my son's birthday. So, yeah, we'll keep connecting with you and getting more insight.
Well, happy birthday to your son in advance. Tell him happy birthday all the way from Cameroon.
Absolutely, I will tell him. Thank you so much, Paul. And that is Paul Anchang sharing his insights on Cameroon's upcoming presidential elections. He is a Yaoundé-based political analyst. All right, that remains to be seen then in terms of where we're going to go, and we'll continue with our coverage of that. A very busy African continent when it comes to electioneering and elections. Let's go to Morocco now, though. The youth-led protests there are demanding better health care and education turned violent on Tuesday, and that's Tuesday night, as clashes broke out with security forces in several cities, marking the fourth straight day of unrest. Hundreds of mostly young demonstrators gathered in the southern towns of Inzengane, Ait Amira, and Tiznit in the eastern city of Oujah, and in Tamara, near the capital Rabat. Tuto Ngobeni has this report.
Violent clashes broke out in several Moroccan cities late Tuesday after days of protests over health and education reforms. Videos showed mass youths in Nzagane near Agadir throwing stones, setting fires near a shopping center, and damaging a post office. While in Ait Amira, demonstrators overturned police vehicles and burned down a bank. Witnesses told Reuters that in Tiznit, dozens of youths hurled stones at officers who tried to disperse the rally. State news agency MAP reported that a protester in Oujda was seriously injured after being hit by a security force car. In Rabat, police arrested dozens of young people as they tried to begin chanting slogans in a densely populated neighborhood. The Moroccan Association for Human Rights, a local rights group, said 37 youths have been released on bail pending an investigation. It said more than 200 mostly young demonstrators had been arrested in Rabat in recent days, although most were later freed. Hakim Sikok, head of AMDH's Rabat branch, condemned the arrests as unconstitutional. In Casablanca, 24 protesters who blocked a highway on Sunday were placed under judicial investigation. The president of a child protection association, Najat Anur, was detained as she spoke to reporters and freed 2 hours later. The protesters were organized online by a loosely formed youth group called Gen Z 212 using TikTok, Instagram, and the gaming app Discord. In a statement posted late on Tuesday on its Facebook page, the group expressed regret over acts of rioting or vandalism that affected public or private property and urged participants to stay peaceful and avoid actions that could undermine the legitimacy of their just demands. For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongobeni in Johannesburg.
It is now 8 o'clock Central African time, and this is Africa Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. This means it's our third and final hour of the show, and we'll bring you more news making headlines in and around our continent. Let's start off with our news, though. My name is Asanda Beda, but here's Jalani Tulongwepe to give us those details of news. And then following her is Fikile Lingwati with sports, and you can tune in on our SABC Plus app, on YouTube, as well as www.channelafrica.co.za.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. State media in Morocco say 2 people have been killed while attempting to storm a police station near the coastal city of Agadir. The deaths come as nationwide youth demonstrations continue. Morocco's Interior Ministry says that more than 400 people have been arrested yesterday and nearly 300 injured during rallies demanding reforms to the public health and education sectors. Local police used firearms to defend themselves. Demand for the resignation of Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina is escalating. This as demonstrations that began in Antananarivo last week over nationwide water shortages and power blackouts continued. President Rajoelina has since dissolved the government as pressure mounts. A message on the protest movement's Facebook page called for Rajoelina's resignation as well as the dissolution of the Election Commission. At least 30 people have been killed and 55 injured after a makeshift scaffolding collapsed in a town about 70 kilometers east of the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. Pilgrims had gathered at a church for an annual celebration. The BBC's Sami Awami has the story.
The accident happened early on Wednesday in Areti town, about 70 kilometers east of the capital Addis Ababa in northern Ethiopia. Worshippers had gathered at the local church for an annual celebration of St. Mary. A doctor at a local hospital has told the media that the victims include children and elderly people and that the hospital is seeking support from the Red Cross to care for the injured. Many others are believed to be trapped in the rubble, and the authorities fear that the death toll could rise further.
Rescuers are racing against time to extradite some 60 teenagers trapped under the remains of an Islamic boarding school that collapsed earlier this week due to foundation failure. Disaster authorities say the Al Khozini school in the East Java town of Sido Arjo collapsed when its foundations could not support ongoing construction work on the upper floors, creating upon dozens of students who were praying and trapped them under the rubble. Abdul Mohari, spokesperson with the Disaster Mitigation Agency, said in a statement that 59 people remain trapped under the rubble. 5 have been confirmed dead. The BBC's Astudestra Ajeng Gastri has the story.
The search team told me that they have a rotation of nearly 400 personnel, and they're planning to do the evacuation process 24 hours non-stop. They're trying to catch the golden hour of releasing the people under the rubble under 72 hours.
And one of the most persistent challenges facing Africa's political landscape is the question of longevity in office. Why do so many leaders stay in power for decades, often well beyond their original mandate? Some argue it's rooted in the liberation struggle era, while ruling parties view leadership as a birthright. Professor Chija Twala from the Department of History at the University of South Africa gives a brief history of how former liberators dealt with power.
The first generation of leaders after decolonization, the late 50s and the early 60s, were straightforward that we have liberated the masses and then we are relinquishing power. But this is a new phenomenon now that people go to an extent of changing the constitution to stay in power forever. That is a simple answer, that people think that by leaving or relinquishing power, therefore they'll be doing disservice to their constituencies.
You can catch the full interview with Professor Chicha Twala from the University of South Africa and Dr. Alex Kihere from the University of the Free State talking to Peter Ndoro on this week's podcast, Channel Africa Conversations on YouTube. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, Live Golf in talks with several players about making a switch. And veteran Springbok center Damian Dialende is looking forward to the most important game against Argentina on Saturday. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Good morning starts here. Rise and shine on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Botswana marked 59 years of independence this week under unusually subdued circumstances. With government unable to fund the traditional celebrations, many citizens turned to social soccer to mark the day. In his independence address, President Duma Boko urged unity even as the economy edges closer to crisis. Channel Africa's Shingerai Madondo reports from Gaborone.
This monumental musical instrumentation was meant to vibrate through the terraces at the National Stadium in Gaborone, Botswana's capital city, on this Independence Day. But it was never to be, as the Southern African country is facing serious financial crisis stemming from a collapse in diamond revenues, thereby straining public finances and fueling social tensions. It is against this backdrop that President Duma Boko has pleaded with the citizens to remain united and work towards a common goal of confronting the country's socio-economic challenges in a collective manner.
We are a force to reckon when we are united and working together. It is our togetherness that is the umbrella for democratic change. We made history by dethroning former ruling Botswana Democratic Party from power. It is only when we work in unison that we can overcome all the challenges that our country is facing and enduring, whether small or big. The African continent can only heal from the current crisis and develop socially and economically by working together. It is only through coordination that all the countries across the globe can confront and overcome the challenges bedeviling the international community.
Boko said the country can only emerge from the current economic crisis that saw the Southern African country declaring a state of health emergency after health institutions ran out of medicines. Diamonds account for 80% of the country's exports and a third of government income, but demand has plunged amid the rise of cheaper lab-grown gems, slowing sales in the United States and weak laser demand in China. The Botswana government projects a fiscal deficit of 11% of gross domestic product GDP in 2025, the widest in the sub-Saharan Africa, with debt expected to double to 43% of the gross domestic product. Botswana Democratic Party Executive Secretary Ami Makoba said it has never happened in the history of Botswana that the country's Independence Day is celebrated without festivities and feasting.
I have come to the conclusion that it's necessary for me to intervene. Botswana expected a lot out of government. The government has not been able to honor the standard that has been set by previous governments. I've had no choice but to slaughter a few goats, a few sheep for people at least in my local community in order that Botswana can enjoy what they have come to know as Botswana Day. You cannot have Boipuso and an extra day over and above the ordinary established holidays of Boipuso and not have the festivities associated with it.
Botswana, once known as Bechuanaland during the colonial period, is now called for its majority ethnic group, the Tswana, and has garnered worldwide renown as a peaceful and growing affluent democratic state since independence. Reporting for Channel Africa from Gaborone here in Botswana, this is Ashingra Matondo.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has officially opened the 11th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit in Hermanus, that's in the Western Cape province of the country. The gathering is a precursor of the November G20 meeting to be held in South Africa. The P20 summit is traditionally opened by the head of state hosting the event. The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mamuluku Kubai, delivered a keynote address on behalf of President Ramaphosa. It is the first of its kind in the history of this summit to be held in Africa, and South Africa is the first incumbent host in the continent. The theme for the 2025 forum is harnessing parliamentary diplomacy for the realization of global solidarity, equality and sustainability. Abongwe Kobogana reports.
The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mamuluko Kubai, had delivered the keynote address.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome you and to deliver the speech on behalf of His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is unable to be with us today. This summit is a call to action for the parliaments of the G20 to work together to advance the principles of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The P20 is a unique platform for strengthening global collaboration. It is an opportunity for the parliaments of the G20 countries to exchange ideas, to network, and to contribute substantively to resolving the most pressing issues of our time.
The minister has called upon the parliamentarians of the G20 nations to include their citizens in the lawmaking process.
It is therefore incumbent upon us as parliaments to bring our institutions closer to the people, to restore the bonds of trust, and to make all citizens part of the effort to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm pleased that the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit has been broadening citizen participation as a standing item as we seek out new and innovative ways to achieve this inclusivity.
Kubai urged the delegates that their legislatures should represent both the diversity of their countries and demographics.
As the institutional anchor of democracy, parliaments play a number of mutually reinforcing roles. The first is representative and representation. Parliaments are the voices of the people and as such aspire to reflect the diversity of their respective society and constituencies.
At the same time, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Toko Didiza, had proposed to the lawmakers in their respective parliaments to be the voices of the citizens in the lawmaking process instead of taking decisions in isolation of them.
Responsibility of representing the voices of our peoples through legislative action, oversight and budgetary allocation. We have the power to ensure that the outcomes of this summit lead to tangible progress in our societies. We are the bridge between the global aspirations and the citizens we represent. South Africa's hosting of the summit reflects our dedication to advancing African perspectives within global discussion. The African Union's Agenda 2023-2063 envisioned a continent that is integrated, prosperous, and peaceful.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Mozambique's opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has been charged with incitement to terrorism and disobedience. He faces a total of 5 charges. The charges relate to post-election violence that left hundreds of people dead. What punishment is he looking at?
The most severe charges are 2. One is incitement for terrorism, and also is being charged for mobilizing people for terrorism during the protests. These charges are really serious and severe. If he is condemned, is found guilty, he could serve 10 years plus years in jail, meaning that he would be banned from political participation, mainly for the 2028 and 2029 electoral cycle.
The director of CDD, the Center for Democracy and Development, Adriano Novunga.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Mozambique's opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has been charged with incitement to terrorism and disobedience. He faces a total of 5 charges. The charges relate to post-election violence that left hundreds of people dead. What punishment is he looking at?
The most severe charges are 2. One is incitement for terrorism, and also is being charged for mobilizing people for terrorism during the protests. These charges are really serious and severe. If he is condemned, is found guilty, he could serve 10 years plus years in jail, meaning that he would be banned from political participation, mainly for the 2028 and 2029 electoral cycle.
The director of CDD, the Center for Democracy and Development, Adriano Novunga.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
16 minutes past 8 Central African Time. Kenya's textile industry is facing an uncertain future. With the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, now expired, factory workers in Kitengela outside Nairobi fear the end of the duty-free trade deal could unravel their livelihoods. Butlale Pele has more.
Every morning, thousands of men and women stream into Export Processing Zone in Kitengela on the edge of Nairobi. For 2 decades, the EPZ has thrived under AGOA, a U.S. program that opened America's markets to African exports without tariffs. For workers here, the deal was more than trade policy. It was a lifeline. Analysts say the end of AGOA could slash African exports to the U.S. by a quarter, hitting Kenya's apparel sector hardest. And for the people in Kitengela, the threat is deeply personal. Dennis Omar knows it firsthand. A father of 2, he says the factory gave him the means to build a stable home life.
You are good to stitch, but you are not good to give production because it's a production thing. But that's where I started living. The life was hand to mouth. The penny you're getting cannot even sustain you beyond the next day. But now immediately when I got the EPZ job, I think after 2 months I was able to rent my own house, have my own household things, and start now feeling how many other middle class people feeling, because the salary was somehow much better, and gaining the skills that I was trained, interacting with many people, changed my thinking, changed my life approach. Until by then I also got married.
Like many others, Omar is clinging to hope. He believes that Washington can still rethink the tariffs and the livelihoods they sustain.
Whatever I was getting, immediately whatever I started getting from EPZ enabled me to do many things in life. Yeah, so and now going forward, started getting kids and making kids. You know, getting kids is another thing, and also sustaining these kids, being a dad who can provide, and all was courtesy of EPZ job.
From his modest office, Omar says the consequences of AGOA's expiry extend far beyond his own family.
We are hoping and we are optimistic that the US government is going to really rethink about AGOA tariffs.
At New White Garment, one of the largest factories in Kitengela, managers say the stakes could not be higher. The facility employs thousands and supports suppliers, transporters and small businesses across the community. Without AGOA, they warn the ripple effects will devastate more than just factory floors.
Actually, if it is not renewed, then that will be a disaster, because you see, we depend on AGOA to create job opportunity. Then it means that we need to scale down our operation, which will also affect not only the factory itself, but the entire community. We are talking about Kitengela community because this factory benefits most of the neighborhood community in terms of backward linkages, suppliers, and everything. They depend on this facility.
Investors too may quickly look elsewhere. Competing markets in Asia already offer cheaper costs and similar benefits.
The investors look at principle of comparative advantage, where the benefits, cost and benefits is a major issue. So if they're not going to get benefits from Kenya, definitely they will look for another place. Take it to Vietnam or take it to Cambodia or take it to any other country that they look at that they can benefit.
For workers in Kitengela, the debate over tariffs is a matter of survival. Without AGOA, the middle-class dreams built through steady factory wages may vanish. The sewing machines still hum for now, but uncertainty lingers, and with it the fear that opportunity may soon unravel. AGOA's expiry leaves thousands of Kenyan workers waiting and hoping for answers. Washington is yet to announce if a new deal will follow. Ambatlali Pile, SABC News.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for Hard Talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. musicians. Remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's government is to roll out cell phone signal jammers in prisons. This to crack down on inmate-led crime rings. The country's Minister of Correctional Services, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, says the move follows fresh reports of extortion schemes masterminded from inside maximum security facilities. Now, for reaction, we speak to Miles Budu, founder of the South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights, or SAPOHR. Miles, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your listeners.
For those who are unfamiliar, how would it be rolled out in terms of its proposition? Is it going to be jamming of signals across the entire day in prison? Would it be on certain hours? Would it be for prisoners who have committed certain crimes? What is the explanation there in terms of how this would work?
Well, that's a very, very informative and intelligent question. You see, as an organization, we absolutely have no mercy when it comes to the Department of Correctional Services. You know why? 20 years ago, we started enlightening and talking about the cell phones that will end up in prisons one way or the other for the wrong or the right reasons. We went to Parliament, we made presentations to the Portfolio Committee of Correctional Services. That is almost 20 years ago when we were still in good books with the ANC-led government. And they did absolutely nothing because we told them that this is a gadget which comes with the information technology revolution. Countries that are developed, that are civilized, that are matured democracies has overcome the issue of calling a cell phone a contraband behind bars. Because you see, these gadgets, you can find them now anywhere. In order for them to stop these gadgets getting into prison, because it's a multi-million-dollar black market business between correctional officers who are corrupted and prisoners who want to have this gadget because they're desperate to remain in contact with their families, according to Section 13 of the Correctional Services Act 111 of 1998. Now, you see, we must also be very sensitive as an organization and educate listeners and fellow South Africans that we're not saying, look, you know, when you put in the jammers, we are going to riot and burn down the prison to the ground and all that. No, we're not saying that. We're asking them, when you are going to put in these jammers, then what? What is the alternative? Because this is something that should have been done 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if not as early as 5 years ago. We are saying as an organization, until such time, they are going to think openly and very sober, these people who are in charge, not only of the Department of Correctional Services, but government, to have a discussion with the different telephone communication service providers, Telkom, Cell C, MTN, and Vodacom, to sit down with them and work out a strategy how these cell phones could be, go and be legalized, constitutionalized and legislated, and use it for the purpose of keeping in touch with community members and with your families. Those who want to use them for furthering criminal activities, they are all by themselves. We as an organization distance ourselves from them, and if they could be found, and it is proven beyond reasonable doubt, we as an organization can even go to court and be a friend of the court to deal with those behind bars.
So, Miles, let's see how we can strike a balance, because recently we've got an example in South Africa of the Bishop Lavis contractor case and other victims who have been directly threatened by inmates using these devices within prison walls. So how do you propose the balance then of the communication rights of inmates, because you advocate for that access and the right for prisoners to access to cell phones, balancing that with the urgent need to protect communities from criminal activities such as extortion and gang operations facilitated via or through prison walls?
Sithi ngesizulu washa kheke. Had they listened to us 20 years ago, we were not going to have this challenge. But it is never too late. Because if they've listened to us, we should have now traced where this call came from, who made this call, and that person should have been arrested on the spot, because technology doesn't lie. Okay? I am saying from where I'm standing, I'm a prisoners' rights activist in good standing. There is no mercy for those that will do what you just referred to. I mean, worse things happen where hits have been organized from behind bars using this gadget. And we told them 20 years this was going to happen. But it all fell on deaf ears. I'm saying to you, you put those jammers, and then what? What is the alternative? Because those who are in prison also do have a right to remain in... telephone network in our prisons has collapsed 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. Telkom has pulled out of this whole thing because it became no more profitable to have landlines installed in prison, because the gadget, which they call a contraband cell phone, has taken over this communication, whether it is illegal communication, whether it is dangerous, unwanted criminal communication. The Department of Correctional Services must be kept entirely responsible of what is happening with the cell phones, because some of their members are in fact the ones that also smuggle these gadgets into these institutions.
Miles, I wish we had more time, because there's still so much to unpack on this topic, and I'm sure we'll catch it in another show or another day on Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. But thank you so much for your time.
Give me your WhatsApp number, send you our statement. It's going to be much better.
Right. I think we have it. Our producer was telling me that she's in possession of that. But yeah, we'll share those details with you just in case we don't. Miles, thanks again for your time. Miles Budu, South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights, or SAPOHR President and prison rights activist. Interesting to note there in terms of even licensing of such a proposal and how that would work, because we know in certain frameworks or jurisdictions it is illegal to jam cell phone signals when you consider that it can hamper with access to emergency services. All right, that's a very interesting topic, that one, but we leave it there at 8:30 Central African Time. Let's go to Dwalani Tulo Ngwebe. She's got our news headlines.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, state media in Morocco says 2 people have been killed while attempting to storm a police station near the coastal city of Agadir. The Sudanese army says it's inflicted heavy losses on the paramilitary rapid support forces who are besieging the city of Al Fasher in North Darfur. And finally, the grandson of South Africa's former president and Nelson Mandela, Mandla, has released a video that he has been abducted by the Ismaili state. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
It's now time for sports, and let's say good morning to Fikile Lingwati, who's got our details.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
We tee off with the golf news. Martin Kaymer says that he's recruiting several players at present to make the switch from the DP World European Tour, which is under the PGA Tour, to the Saudi-backed Live Golf Tour. Kaymer was one of the several high-profile stars to make the switch in 2022, but his motives likely run deeper than a pure allegiance to Live. Kaymer's teammate Fredrik Keitrop of Denmark was recently relegated from the league for failing to secure any points, creating an opening on the Clicks team, captained by Kaymer. The Clicks team finished a spot out of the last place this year after finishing in 11th a year ago. Germany's Keimer, who reached a number 1 ranking in 2011 and has won 2 majors, further pointed to having a good deal of interest from players on European tour. On to football news, head coach of Nigeria's male under-17 team, also known as the Golden Eaglets, Manu Gaba, is critical of the Confederation of African Football's decision to limit the number of teams that can qualify for the under-17 AFCON from WAFU B to 2. This after Nigeria fell short again at the regional qualifying tournament. The Golden Eaglets were beaten 2-0 in the second semi-final of the WAFU B tournament in Ivory Coast, meaning they will not be part of the 2026 Under-17 AFCON and by extension the 2026 FIFA Under-17 World Cup, which has now become an annual tournament. On to rugby news, veteran Springbok centre Damian Dialende believes Saturday's Rugby Championship decider against Argentina at Twickenham in London is the most important game of the year so far for the gold and green. Dialende is getting ready to win his 93rd Test cap for the Boks. The prospect of back-to-back Rugby Championship titles makes Saturday's showdown a pretty special outing for a player like Dialende.
This game that we play this weekend is the most important game of the year so far. It will be a final for us. So we'll make sure we put 100% focus into that, and then a few of us have a couple of weeks off before end of year tour.
The Springboks welcome back Oxenchair to the front row and with formidable scrummagers throughout the Bog ranks. Starting tight head Thomas Dudoi knows he can set a solid foundation before handing over to a behemoth like Wilco Low on the bench.
It's such a pleasure knowing that the guy who's going to come on is so destructive at scrum time and really carries himself well around the field. So for me, knowing my purpose, knowing my ability for the first 45-50 minutes, however long it might be, it's brilliant for me. I'm loving my role in the team, and I'm very grateful for the guys around me that also pull their part and make me feel comfortable in this team and in this position that I'm in at the moment.
Australia prop James Slipper, only the 3rd player to reach 150 international caps, has announced his retirement from rugby. 36-year-old is expected to wear the Wallaby jersey for the 151st and the last time when Australia hosts New Zealand in the last round of the Rugby Championship in Perth on Saturday. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fide Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Let's check in with the world of business now. Our economics news reporter is Tabiso Lihuku. Good morning, sir.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. A business editor of The Guardian Nigeria, Jeff Iata, has commended all parties involved in calling off a strike at Dangote Refinery. Iate says that the 2-day strike action affected some areas in the country. Addressing a media briefing in Abuja, President of the National Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Festus Osifo, said the National Executive Council of the union met and resolved to suspend the strike as a mark of respect to the sacrifices made by the government and other stakeholders to broker peace. The union had accused the company of firing 800 unionized workers and replacing them with 2,000 Indian workers. Iate commends.
it has huge consequence for the entire economy. It has huge consequence for the lives of millions of Nigeria. I'm not sure in Lagos where I live, it's difficult to get gas now just because of the 2 days industrial action. So that shows how much that has affected, the crisis has affected the lives of an ordinary person.
South African businesses face an urgent imperative to modernize their digital commerce strategies as a powerful global online marketplaces, exemplified by platforms like TikTok Shop, rapidly reshape the retail landscape. According to industry experts, this shift, driven by a fundamental change in consumer behavior, demands immediate adaptation of local enterprises. Greg Vesalotti, Commercial Director at Dariel Software, says that these dominant online marketplaces are now overtaking traditional online stores.
The e-commerce platform is starting to be integrated into the logistics companies. It's starting to integrate into the ERP systems so that you have online availability. You know exactly what stock, the buyer knows exactly what stock is available and which branch it's available in.
Political economist Professor Patrick Bond says U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on South African goods have led to a sharp drop in its country's exports to the U.S. during the second quarter of this year. Experts have warned that uncertainty over jobs and trade still hangs over South Africa following the expiration of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Bond says in the absence of any relief on AGOA, South African goods will now face standard tariffs on exports to the United States. This while certain products such as copper, pharmaceuticals and certain minerals are exempt. Bond elaborates.
So we're still at 30%, and I think for the most crucial exports hit hard now are, since end of July, are in citrus and the vineyard products, the wine and the grapes, and also macadamia nuts. So we're going to see lots of job losses in agriculture.
Namibia's tourism industry is expected to struggle over the next 3 years. Last month, a week-long wildfire ravaged over a third of Etosha National Park, which is the country's largest game reserve. A recent report by financial services firm Simonis Storm Securities shows that the country's tourism sector had only just recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic, with hotel occupancy reaching 67.55% in August, which is the highest it has been since 2019. In 2022, the tourism sector contributed 6.9% to Namibia's gross domestic product. Tech shares rallied, driving Asia stocks indexes higher, while gold hovered near a record high and the dollar languished as a weak U.S. labor market report bolstered bets for Federal Reserve interest rate cuts. The U.S. government shutdown made it a near certainty that crucial monthly payrolls data won't be released on Friday, but overnight the private ADP employment report showed the economy unexpectedly shed jobs in September, with the prior month also revised to a decline. The promise of an easier policy environment helped lift Wall Street to fresh record highs on Wednesday, and the Philadelphia SE Semiconductor Index climbed more than 2%. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,483 naira. In Botswana, it's at 13 pula 20. Kenya, 128 shilling 518. In Zambia, 23 kwacha 86. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5.32. Russia, 82 rubles 6. India, 88 rupees 70. China, 7 yuan 12. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 17 rand 21 cents, 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,864 and platinum $1,558 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $65.70 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
8:42 Central African Time. It is here on Rise and Shine. Good morning. Let's talk Breast Cancer Month now, as October marks Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The World Health Organization says that breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer among women worldwide. In 2022, approximately 2.3 million women were diagnosed and another 670,000 died from the disease. According to the World Health Organization, this year's theme, Every Story is Unique, Every Journey Matters, is a reminder that breast cancer touches the lives of women and their families around the world differently, and that every journey deserves compassion, dignity, and support. To talk to us further about breast cancer, we're joined on the line by Dr. Fatima Hussein, a specialist surgeon in breast health, thyroid health, and breast cancer here in South Africa. Dr. Hussein, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, and how are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having us on today.
It's our pleasure. Doctor, in 2022, let's start here. The World Health Organization revealed that breast cancer caused an estimated 670,000 deaths globally. What is lacking when it comes to South Africa, according to your expertise? Is it information? Is it ignorance? Is it the failure of our health systems? What is it?
I think it's all of the above, and additional fear and stigma that's associated with having a disease in general. We don't have enough screening available for the populations in general to allow for the World Health Organization recommendation, which is annual mammography for all women over the age of 40. That's just simply not available. Education, definitely, women don't know about the monthly breast self-examination, and even if they are often very afraid to do the examination, because what happens if they find a lump? I think there's a lot of misinformation that all lumps are breast cancer, and if the lump is breast cancer, it's automatically a terminal diagnosis, which is obviously not true, and in fact impedes the desire or how people access the healthcare system, and often results in them accessing it too late.
How are we doing as far as diagnosis in the country? I know you talk about not enough screening and not enough education on self-examination. So how's our screening? How is our diagnosis levels?
We in the rural population, or the vast majority of South Africans who don't have access to screening, we are diagnosing breast cancer in the more advanced stages, so more locally advanced breast cancer, stage 2 and stage 3 disease, and obviously the more advanced the breast cancer is diagnosed at, the prognosis obviously worsens. The risk of recurrence is higher. The requirement for more aggressive therapy is higher, which then perpetuates the fear and stigma that is associated with breast cancer, and the fear of, again, accessing the healthcare system at an early stage, and then trying to examine the breasts, again, self-examination. It's actually a self-perpetuating negative cycle. I think we're not doing too bad given the circumstances. Patients have to diagnose themselves. I mean, they have to feel a mass before they have to. Once they feel a mass, they obviously know there's a problem. Then they access the healthcare system, and then the whole thing gets triggered: the mammogram, the ultrasound, biopsy, etc. So, given that circumstance, I don't think we're doing too badly in terms of diagnosing disease. And obviously, the treatment that we have available, we're lucky. We do have many options for treatment, and there are obviously delays, but delays are not as bad as they are in many other African countries.
And you touched on rural women there in terms of the challenges they're facing, especially when it comes to diagnosis. A 2023 study by Mangosuthu University of Technology and the Durban University of Technology showed that rural women battling cancer suffer from various socio-cultural interpretations of cancer. What other stereotypes are there, and what can be done to change these?
I think there's some people. I mean, there's a lot of belief that if you have develop a cancer or develop any sorts of disease, that this is some sort of curse or witchcraft or something along those lines. And people often, instead of going directly to access the healthcare system, get your mammogram, the conventional system, they try alternative options, which then further delays the diagnosis. And again, all of these things eventually result in a poorer prognosis. The longer you wait to provide treatment, or the correct treatment, the poorer the outcome for the patient. But that said, I mean, in terms of the rural healthcare system and the rural population, they have a lot more challenges. A lot of those patients are already living on the breadline. Once they feel a mass, even if they wanted to access the healthcare system, it's about financial issues. They have to save money to get transport. They get the transport to make an appointment for at the clinic to get seen. Once they get seen, they have to wait for the biopsy to be done. They have to wait for the results. All of these things require another appointment and additional finances, which patients often do not have, and obviously hampers their ability to access treatment early enough and often enough to get the treatment that they need. And the healthcare system, as we know, is overburdened already. So if getting them into the system, it takes a long time. Everything takes a little bit longer than what we would hope for.
On the parts that we are doing well as a country when it comes to diagnosis, what can that be attributed to so that we speed efforts up on that part?
I think what we're doing right now, this conversation, having these conversations more often, and increasing awareness, trying to make the idea of breast self-examination a little bit more palpable, teaching people about the realities of breast cancer, that it's a common disease, that it affects a lot of people, that it's extremely treatable, especially if it's diagnosed early, that they don't have to necessarily fear the healthcare system and fear the implications of getting treatment. I mean, getting treatment does involve some unpleasantness, but ultimately it's to help you. Trying to get those messages across and encouraging those conversations in an environment that avoids stigma. Those are all very, very important. And I think as South Africans, we are doing that as more and more people are moving from environments to the city. These things are becoming the awareness about it and correct misinformation is about these discussions are getting much less, and this is very important because those messages eventually get translated to the populations, which we perhaps are not necessarily reaching in the more cosmopolitan areas of the country.
So for this year's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, what should we be focusing on?
I think we should be focusing on things that actually we can change, and that is we should be encouraging breast self-examination. We should be encouraging having conversations about breast cancer. We should be encouraging people to understand that there is treatment available, especially if you get it if you get diagnosed earlier. So accessing the healthcare system early is not a bad thing. And if you health the healthcare environment, the environment that we work in, is not opposed to the let's say, the homeopathic route. So if you want to combine both, there's a lot of, having that conversation with your healthcare provider can allow you to still have your the best of both worlds, get the treatment in the conventional sector as well as see your naturopath or your healer, etc. It just needs both people or both systems to work together and have less hide, we shouldn't hide information from each other. We should work with the patient and for the patient.
Dr. Hussein, thank you so much again for educating us, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having this conversation.
Pleasure. Dr. Fatima Hussein, a specialist surgeon in breast health, thyroid health, and breast cancer, speaking to us on the line about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It is this month of October.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live. 5 days a week. AUSISA, the Association of Water and Sanitation Institution of South Africa, is a platform uniting Africa's water professionals. This November, Africa leads the conversation on water and sanitation. Join global and African leaders at the AUSISA Africa and Global South Dialogue 2025 from the 9th till the 12th of November at the Emperor's Palace, Johannesburg. From policy innovation, this is where action meets collaboration for a water-secure future. Register today at ausisa-watersan-dialogue.org or follow at AUSISA on social media. AUSISA, working together for sustainable water and sanitation security in Africa. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South African opposition politician and leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, or EFF, political party, Julius Malema, has announced his intention to appeal a conviction handed down by a local magistrates' court in South Africa's Eastern Cape province. Malema was found guilty of unlawfully possessing a firearm and ammunition, as well as discharging a firearm in public during the EFF's 5th anniversary celebrations in 2018. His former bodyguard and co-accused, Adrian Snyman, was acquitted of all charges by the same court. Malema expressed surprise at Snyman's acquittal, noting that Snyman is alleged to have been the person who provided him with the firearm. Here's Lubabalo Dada with more.
Delivering the judgment, Magistrate Toinette Olivier said the state brought credible and reliable witnesses to prove its case. She added that the viral video footage could not be relied upon in some instances, as it could not prove that the firearm used was real or not. Olivier criticized the defense's evidence, saying it was not convincing enough to prove Malema's innocence. She added that Malema was uncooperative when she was cross-examined by the state.
Mr. Malema had evaded many questions that had warranted a reply. It became evident that the replies were entertaining, but however, the pertinent questions asked remained unanswered. He further relied on clip 3, and he had then counted 15 shots fired, and thereafter stated he cannot count, he had graduated in woodwork. Further, as to how the cartridge or the SPA 249-14 is linked to him, his reply was it must have been the Holy Spirit, and these type of answers did not do accused one any favors.
Lobby group AfriForum and the NPA welcomed the judgment. AfriForum spokesperson for community safety, Jacques Brodick, and Luxolo Kyali of the NPA say this judgment will serve as a deterrent.
Well, we're very grateful. We think this ruling was essential to reinstate faith from the public side in the South African justice system. We think people have started to lose faith in the justice system because we've seen so many politically connected and political cases that simply did not get any attention, that simply get ignored, and there is no consequences for politicians who make themselves guilty of misconduct. So this is a great breakthrough, and it's a big win for all the law-abiding citizens of South Africa.
Okay, the NPA welcomes the judgment by the court today. It reaffirms our commitment to the rule of law and making sure that there's proper administration of justice. This case has always been about upholding the rule of law, and the NPA was not in any way pressurized politically.
After the judgment, Malema addressed party members who were outside the court. He told his supporters that he's going to take the matter to the highest court in the land if necessary.
We will immediately put an appeal so that we can go to the higher court because we think a judgment is faulty. The strategy has always been you must try to charge Malema with everything. One day, maybe we'll find a racist judge who will find him guilty, whether he's guilty or not. Because they said accused number 2 gave me the firearm. Now they are releasing him, which means he didn't give me the firearm. Why are you not releasing me when you release a person you allege gave me the firearm? By releasing accused number 2, the whole case should have collapsed. But the racist was looking for me, and that's why they could not collapse the case for racist reason, to appease the AfriForum, to appease the Oval Office of Donald Trump, to appease all the white supremacists of South Africa who want to undermine the dignity and the struggle of black people. So fighters, we should not be discouraged. We should continue to fight, because this fight will not end today. We are going to the appeal, and we will go to the Supreme Court. We'll end up at the Constitutional Court.
Malema is expected to appear in court again on the 23rd of January next year for pre-sentencing. Lubabalo Tada, SABC News, East London.
That's how we come to the end of our programming on this Thursday, the 2nd of October, for Rise and Shine. But stay tuned to Channel Africa, because we have On the Move coming up. Benjamin, what can we expect? Good morning.
Hey, man, I'm going to be very brief today. October marks what many people are calling Oksoba. Do you participate?
Oh, not drinking alcohol?
Yes, for the whole month.
Okay, no.
All
I
right.
don't participate.
Yeah, me too. I don't participate. It's too stressful. Anyway, we're going to be looking at something about this, because this is when you get the opportunity to step back, reset, and reflect on the habit. Particular one is maybe slowing down on alcohol. Today, we're going to explore what these 30 days without alcohol can teach you about self-discipline, delayed gratification, restrictions, but also a sort of resilience and self-awareness. And can you actually handle kind of a discipline to say, you know what, I can do without this one thing just for now.
Okay, interesting one. I'm not doing it. I need my wine. So anyway, that's coming up on The Move with Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa Tao. So stay tuned. I'm Asanda Beda from the Rise and Shine team. It's goodbye for now. We hand you over to the news. Here's Jolane Tulo Ngwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Top stories: Sabah, 2 people killed attempting to storm a police station in Morocco, and a South African